Don't talk. They're coming. The voice was barely a whisper, yet it sliced through the silence like a blade. Emma Morgan froze, one heel caught in the elevator doorway, her leather portfolio pressed tight against her chest. Her eyes darted to the corner of the dimly lit car. At first, she thought she'd imagined it, a trick of exhaustion after another 15-hour day. Then she saw him, a boy, maybe 8 years old, curled in the shadows near the emergency panel, knees pulled to his chest. Wide eyes, frightened yet far too knowing for his small face. Emma's heart kicked against her ribs. What is a child doing here at midnight? She parted her lips, but the boy's trembling hands shot up, palm outward. Don't say a word, he hissed. Urgency trembled in his small voice. They'll hear you. The doors slid shut, trapping them in a box of humming steel and fluorescent light. Emma stood frozen, pulse hammering in her throat. She was CEO of Morgan Innovations, used to boardrooms and billion-dollar contracts, not to being cornered in an elevator by a child whispering like a spy. "Who are you?" she whispered back. The boy shook his head hard. Shh. His eyes flicked toward the glowing red lens of the ceiling camera. They're watching, always watching. A chill ran down Emma's spine. She nearly laughed at herself. Really? Emma Morgan, spooked by a kid? But something in his raw fear pinned her. She didn't laugh. The elevator jolted with a faint metallic groan, and in that fragile pause, the boy whispered a single word that stopped her breath. Morgan. Her name. Her body stiffened. He knows my name. Before she could speak, the elevator chimed. The doors opened. A man in a navy blue maintenance uniform stood there, gripping a worn toolbox like a shield. He blinked, startled, his tired brown eyes darting from her to the boy. Ethan, he breathed. Relief flooded his voice. There you are. The boy scrambled into his arms, clutching his shirt like claws. Emma stepped back, her composure fraying. The maintenance man looked at her, shame darkening his expression. I'm sorry, ma'am. He didn't mean to bother you. His voice was steady, rasped with a weight he carried alone. Emma's chin lifted, armor returning. What was your son doing in an elevator at midnight? Hiding like that? The man's broad shoulders tightened. It won't happen again. He just likes to hide. I'll talk to him. But the boy's muffled voice pressed through his father's chest. She needs to know, Dad. They said her name. Emma's breath froze. The maintenance man, Jack, his name tag read, shot his son a sharp, desperate look. Enough, Ethan. He forced a smile. Kids make things up. I'll get him home. Emma's instincts screamed to press further, but exhaustion twisted with irritation. Absurd. I don't have time for riddles from Janitor's kids, she straightened. See that you do, and keep him out of places he doesn't belong. Her heels struck the marble lobby floor like gavel blows as she strode away. Yet the boy's whisper clung to her mind. They said your name. Outside, the city hummed. Neon traffic, a saxophone bleeding through the night. Emma's driver held open the sedan door, but she lingered, staring at her reflection in the tinted glass. Her name. Emma Morgan was not a woman easily shaken. She had clawed her way through betrayal, broken promises, and family greed. She'd built walls too high for anyone to breach. And yet a child's whisper had pierced them with ease. Behind her, Jack crouched beside his son. Ethan, he said softly, though his tone was firm. You can't say things like that to strangers, especially not her. Ethan's wide eyes brimmed with something deeper than imagination. But Dad, I heard them. They said Miss Morgan's name. They said, tomorrow she'll sign, and then she won't own anything anymore. Jack's voice sharpened, not anger, fear. His eyes flicked toward the dozing security guard. We'll talk at home. Ethan nodded reluctantly, small hands fisting his father's sleeve. Jack exhaled. He was used to cleaning up messes no one noticed, but tonight felt different. He saw it in the way his son trembled, and in the fleeting glance Emma had cast back. Just once, enough to show she'd heard more than she wanted. And that whisper, they said your name, was about to change everything. Emma slid into the sedan, yet instead of reaching for her phone, she stared out at the glass tower she'd built her empire in. The walls gleamed with power, but for the first time, she wondered how much of that power was truly hers. For the first time in years, fear edged her heart. Tomorrow she'll sign. Ethan's voice echoed like prophecy. The car pulled away. The tower shrank behind her. But Emma's thoughts stayed locked in that elevator with a boy who shouldn't have known her name and a maintenance man whose eyes carried a story untold. Something was coming. She could feel it in her bones. And though she didn't know it yet, she had just stepped into a battle that would test everything she thought she knew about trust, betrayal, and the quiet truths we hide until they can no longer be ignored. The night bled into morning, but Emma Morgan never closed her eyes. Sleep refused to come. The scene in the elevator replayed on a loop. The boy's wide eyes, his urgent whisper, the way he spoke her name as if he had been listening to ghosts. By sunrise, she told herself it was nothing. Children had wild imaginations, especially Janitor's kids. And yet, as she adjusted the collar of her tailored suit in the mirror, the woman staring back didn't look like the one she remembered. Her face was flawless, but her eyes carried something she hadn't allowed in years: doubt. Jack Harmon walked Ethan to school under a gray autumn sky. The sidewalks glistened with drizzle. Every step crunched through fallen leaves. Neither spoke, the silence heavy. "You shouldn't have said her name," Jack muttered at last. His voice was low, strained. Ethan clutched the straps of his backpack, his shoulders small but stiff. "But I heard them, Dad. In that big office with the glass wall, the man with the silver tie and the woman with the red nails. They said, 'Tomorrow she'll sign and then she won't own anything anymore.'" Jack froze at the corner. The words sliced through him. He bent down, his hands gripping his son's shoulders. "Ethan, listen to me. You can't say things like that. People will think you're making it up. And people like her, people at the top, they don't listen to maintenance men's sons." Ethan's lip trembled, but his eyes stayed steady. "But I wasn't making it up. I know what I heard." Jack shut his eyes. His late wife's voice whispered in memory. "Never teach him to silence the truth, even if the world doesn't want to hear it." He let out a long breath. "I believe you. I just don't want you to get hurt." Ethan leaned closer, his voice dropping to the same whisper he'd used in the elevator. "They were laughing when they said it, Dad. Like she was stupid. Like she was nothing." His fist clenched. "Grandma always said, if you see someone getting stepped on, you help, because next time it could be you." Jack's throat tightened. His mother's wisdom lived in the boy more than in himself. Later that morning, Emma entered the 40th floor boardroom. Her heels struck sharp against polished marble. Ryan Sullivan, her COO, rose with a wide smile. His silver tie gleamed under the lights. Beside him, Diana Hayes, her CFO, shuffled contracts, her crimson nails tapping against the folder. "Emma," Ryan said smoothly, "we're right on schedule. Tomorrow's signing puts Morgan Innovations on the global map. The Japanese investors are thrilled. You'll have nothing to worry about." Emma's gaze fixed on the tie, then the nails. And like a cold wind, Ethan's whisper rushed back. "The man with the silver tie, the woman with the red nails." She forced a smile, though her heart thundered. "I'll review everything tonight. No surprises." For a fraction of a second, Ryan's grin faltered. Then it snapped back in place. "Of course, trust me, we've handled every detail. All you need to do is sign." Diana slid the folder toward her. Yellow tabs marked the spots. Simple, clean. Her voice was sweet, rehearsed. Emma's hand hovered above the folder. She didn't touch it. Instead, she leaned back. 10 years, Diana. 15 with you, Ryan. I've trusted you both more than anyone. Tell me, what do you call someone who trusts without looking?" Ryan chuckled, soft and smooth. "A wise leader, one who doesn't waste time micromanaging." But his eyes gave nothing away. That night, long after the boardroom lights dimmed, Emma returned to the lobby. The building was nearly empty, the hum of fluorescent bulbs filling the marble silence. Near the entrance, Jack mopped quietly, his broad shoulders bent. On a bench nearby, Ethan sketched on a crumpled sheet of paper, his small hands smudged with pencil. Emma hesitated, then stepped closer. "Mr. Harmon." Jack straightened, startled. "Ma'am." Her gaze drifted to the boy, who looked up, eyes wide. "You?" she said softly. "What exactly did you hear?" Jack stiffened. He's just a kid. Imagination runs wild at that age. Ethan shook his head. "I heard them, the silver tie and the red nails. They said your name, Miss Morgan. They said tomorrow you'd sign without reading." The lobby seemed to shrink around them. Every sound echoed, the drip of mop water, the faint buzz of a dying light. Emma's pulse quickened. Why would you say that? Ethan's voice was small but unshakable. Because when people think someone's invisible, they talk like no one's listening. But I was there. I listened. Emma's breath caught. She searched the boy's solemn eyes and saw no mischief, only truth. Slowly her gaze turned to Jack. Why would he lie about something like this? She whispered. Jack's jaw tightened. He looked at his son, then at her. Sometimes kids see what adults are too busy or too blind to notice. For the first time in years, Emma felt vulnerable. The boy's warning echoed louder than the silence of the marble lobby, and with chilling clarity, one truth broke through her defenses. The maintenance man's son may have just saved her from losing everything. Morning sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Morgan Innovations, turning the skyline into a gleaming horizon of ambition. For most, it was inspiring. For Emma Morgan, it was a reminder of how far she had climbed and how easily she could fall. She stood at the head of the boardroom table, her hand resting on the cool glass surface. Ethan Harmon's warning replayed in her mind. They said your name. Tomorrow you'll sign without reading. She told herself it was nonsense, a child's wild story. Yet the way his voice had trembled, the way Jack had looked at her with quiet gravity, nagged at her like a splinter. Ryan Sullivan sat with his usual poise, his silver tie immaculate. Across from him, Diana Hayes tapped crimson nails against a folder, each click sharper than before. Details she had once overlooked now echoed like alarms. Emma, Ryan said warmly, rising with polished charm, you look like you're carrying the weight of the world. After tomorrow, it'll be lighter. This deal is perfect. You'll be remembered as the woman who made Morgan Innovations a global force. Emma forced a smile. I'll be reviewing the contracts again tonight. Every clause. For a flicker of a second, his smile cracked. Of course, but you don't need to drown yourself in technicalities. That's why you have us. Trust is the cornerstone of leadership. Diana added sweetly, we've flagged every page with yellow tabs. All you'll need is a pen. Efficiency is power, Emma. Her words, meant as reassurance, landed like a threat. Efficiency, power, yellow tabs. Ethan's voice echoed in her head. They said you'd sign without reading. Emma kept her composure. 10 years, Diana. 15 with you, Ryan. Do you know what trust feels like when it breaks? Like glass, it shatters. And when it does, everyone bleeds. A murmur rippled through the directors. One gray-haired and loyal for decades finally spoke. Ryan, 200 million isn't liquidity management. It's fraud. The room fell silent. Ryan laughed lightly, too practiced. Always the poet, but nothing will break tomorrow. His eyes, however, held no humor. That evening, alone in her office, Emma stared out at the city lights. The folder lay open on her desk, bright yellow tabs marking each place to sign. She skimmed the dense legal language, but it blurred together. She was Emma Morgan, the woman who never second-guessed. So why was her pen refusing to move? Her phone buzzed. A message from Ryan. Trust us, we'll make you proud tomorrow. Then from Diana, everything's ready. You'll shine in front of the investors. Their words, once a comfort, now tasted like poison wrapped in silk. She thought of Ethan's solemn eyes. They laughed. They said your name. Her reflection in the glass window looked flawless, but she saw the fracture beneath. The next morning in the marble lobby, she saw Jack mopping near the doors, Ethan sitting nearby with his notebook. Emma hesitated, then approached. Mr. Harmon. Jack looked up, surprised. Ma'am. Her gaze fell to Ethan. May I ask again, what exactly did you hear? Jack's jaw tightened. With respect, Miss Morgan, my boy's had enough. He hides in corners because kids push him around. Yes, he hears things, but you can't base decisions on that. Ethan looked up, his voice quiet but steady. They said you were stupid, that you'd sign, and that the day after you wouldn't have a job. Emma's chest tightened. The boy's words mirrored Ryan's message. Trust us. She crouched down, meeting Ethan's gaze. Why tell me? You don't even know me. Ethan's expression didn't waver. Because I know what it's like when people treat you like you don't matter. They think you won't notice, but you do. And if you can help, you should. The words pierced deeper than any boardroom insult ever had. Emma rose slowly, her throat tight. Jack held her gaze, offering no persuasion, only weary honesty. He wasn't using his son to gain favor. He was simply letting her decide what she would do with the truth placed in her hands. Sometimes, Jack said quietly, the smallest voices carry warnings the rest of us are too proud to hear. Her heels echoed across the lobby as she walked away, but her heart no longer beat steady. For the first time, Emma Morgan wasn't sure if tomorrow would mark her triumph or her downfall. The fluorescent light above the service hallway flickered, humming like a weary insect. Emma had always hated this part of the building. Low ceilings, gray walls, the sharp tang of bleach clinging to the air. It felt beneath her station, a place reserved for those who lived in the shadows of the company she commanded. And yet tonight, here she was. The elevator had lurched to a halt between floors, throwing her against the side with a jarring thud. Panic pressed against her ribs. She reached for the emergency button, but a voice floated up through the shaft. "Hold on, don't move." Moments later, the hatch creaked open, and a hand reached in. Jack Harmon, maintenance man by day, now framed by the glow of a portable lamp. His face was calm, his movements steady, like a man who had done this 100 times before. "Step carefully, Miss Morgan. I'll get you out." She bristled at the command. She was the CEO. She gave orders. She didn't take them. But in that steel box suspended between floors, she found herself obeying. She gripped his calloused hand, strong and unshaking, and let him guide her through the hatch. It was as if she weighed nothing at all. When her heels finally met solid ground, she pulled her hand away, her tone sharp. "What kind of building are you running here, Harmon? Elevator stalling like it's the 1970s? Jack gave a faint smile. "The systems are old. They do what they can. Lucky for you, I know my way around them." Emma arched a brow. "You know your way around a mop. I didn't realize elevators were in your job description." He crouched and opened a panel, his flashlight cutting through a web of wires. His hands moved with practiced precision, testing, adjusting, coaxing the circuits back to life. Sparks leapt briefly, then steadied into order. Emma watched, curiosity pricking through her irritation. "That's not maintenance work." "No," Jack admitted, not looking up. "It isn't. You've done this before," she pressed. He paused, meeting her gaze. His eyes held a gravity that stilled her sarcasm. "I used to be an industrial engineer, worked on power grids, construction sites, even corporate towers like this one." She folded her arms, studying him. "So why trade that for pushing a mop?" The elevator hummed back to life, smooth again. He closed the panel and rose, his shoulders outlined in the harsh light. "My wife got sick," he said simply. "Cancer. By the time we found it, it was too late. When she passed, Ethan was 6. He needed me more than any company did. So I quit. Took work that let me be home every night. Work that didn't swallow me whole." The words landed like stones in her chest. Emma had expected excuses, maybe resentment. Instead, she found sacrifice. "You gave up everything," she said, softer than she intended. Jack shook his head. "No, I chose. There's a difference. A career can be rebuilt. A little boy's childhood can't." Emma turned away, her throat tight. Rain hammered against the glass of a nearby window, echoing her own storming thoughts. Her father's betrayal surfaced, sharp as broken glass, the day he'd signed away her family's company under the guise of strategy. She had promised herself never again to be blind, never again to put people above the numbers. And yet here stood a man who had done the opposite, placing his son above everything, no matter the Pietan. "Does Ethan know?" she asked quietly. Jack exhaled. "He knows his dad used to work with machines. He doesn't know I gave it all up for him. He just knows I'm there when he wakes up at night." There was no self-pity in his tone, no pride, just truth. "You don't even realize it," Emma murmured, almost to herself. "You make the rest of us look hollow." His gaze didn't flinch. "I'm not here to make anyone look like anything. I'm just trying to raise my son right." The elevator chimed down the hall, now fixed and ready. Emma should have walked away. Instead, her voice held her in place. "If you were still the man you used to be," she asked, her tone sharp again, masking the crack in her composure, "what would you say if people you trusted were plotting against you?" Jack tilted his head, considering. Then, with a voice as steady as the circuits he'd just repaired, he said, "I'd listen to the quiet warnings. The whispers nobody else takes seriously. They're usually closer to the truth than the loudest speeches." Ethan's voice returned to her. haunting and small. They said your name. Tomorrow she signs. She loses everything. Emma's chest tightened. For years, she had trusted Ryan and Diana without question. For years, she had mistaken loyalty for competence. What if she'd been blind all along? Jack gathered his tools and slung the bag over his shoulder. Elevator's safe now. You won't have trouble tomorrow. He turned to leave. Harmon, Emma called. He stopped. You're not what you seem, she said. A faint smile tugged at his mouth. Neither are you. And then he was gone, his footsteps fading into the hum of the building, leaving her with the storm outside and the storm inside. For the first time in years, Emma felt something she couldn't outmaneuver with contracts or logic. Not just suspicion, not just fear, but the undeniable sense that the maintenance man who had once been an engineer might be the only man in this building who truly saw the danger coming. Emma's office was silent save for the soft click of her keyboard. The night had deepened outside her windows, the city transforming into a blanket of lights stretching to the horizon. Most executives had gone home hours ago, but she remained, combing through the Kimura Tech contract line by line. She'd always prided herself on attention to detail, but tonight was different. Tonight she read like her life depended on it, because perhaps it did. The legal language was deliberately complex, clauses nested within clauses like Russian dolls. She'd nearly missed it, a reference to Appendix G, buried in paragraph 37 of subsection 14. No yellow tab marked this page. When she finally located Appendix G, her blood ran cold. Management Continuity Agreement. Innocuous words that masked a lethal trap. Upon execution of the agreement, voting rights would transfer immediately to a management committee. Her name appeared nowhere on the list of committee members. Ryan Sullivan's did. Diana Hayes's did. Even Stephen Jameson, a board member she trusted for a decade, was there. She would sign away her company tomorrow, just as Ethan had warned. Her phone buzzed. Diana with another placating message. All set for tomorrow's triumph. Get some sleep, Emma. You deserve this victory. Victory. The word tasted like ash now. Emma leaned back in her chair, bone-tired yet wired with adrenaline. She thought of her father signing away their family legacy while assuring her it was for the best. She'd sworn never to be that blind, that trusting. And yet here she was, nearly walking into the same trap. Her gaze fell on a business card sitting on her desk. She'd found it, slipped under her door earlier. A plain white rectangle with a name and number. Jack Harmon, and beneath it, a handwritten note. If you need the truth, call, anytime. She stared at it for a long moment, turning it between her fingers. Then she picked up her phone. The coffee shop was 4 blocks from the office, small and unremarkable. The kind of place executives like Emma Morgan never frequented. The kind of place where a maintenance man and his son might stop for hot chocolate on a cold morning. Jack sat in a corner booth, Ethan beside him with a sketchbook and colored pencils. When Emma entered, Ethan spotted her first, eyes widening. He tugged his father's sleeve. Jack stood as she approached, surprise evident on his face. You came. She slid into the booth across from them, still in yesterday's suit, dark circles beneath her eyes betraying her sleepless night. I read the contracts. All of them. You were right, she looked at Ethan. Both of you were right. Ethan didn't smile. He simply nodded, the solemn wisdom of a child who had grown accustomed to being underestimated. What did you find? Jack asked quietly. Emma glanced around, then lowered her voice. They've buried a clause transferring control to a management committee the moment I sign. I'd still be CEO in name, but with no voting power, no real authority. Within months, they could vote me out entirely. And the money? Jack pressed. $200 million routed through a Cayman trust. She shook her head. I built this company from nothing after my father sold our family business. I swore I'd never be blindsided again. And yet, she trailed off, anger and shame warring within her. Jack's expression remained steady. What will you do? Emma's jaw set. I need evidence, not just the contracts. Those could be explained away as standard corporate restructuring. I need them to admit what they're doing. On record. Ethan looked up from his drawing, his voice soft but certain. I know all the places where you can hear things, places where no one looks. Jack and Emma exchanged glances. Jack's protective instinct flared, but before he could speak, Emma leaned forward. Ethan, this isn't your fight. You've done more than enough already. The boy's gaze was unblinking. When kids at school pushed me around, Dad taught me to stand up for myself. But he also taught me to stand up for others. That's what brave means. Jack's throat tightened. He placed a hand on his son's shoulder, pride and fear mingling in his chest. Emma watched the exchange, something shifting behind her eyes. We need more than overheard conversations, she said finally. We need irrefutable proof, and for that, we need help. Jack nodded slowly. I might know someone, a friend from my old life. He specializes in finding the truth when others want it buried. Their eyes met across the table, the CEO and the maintenance man, unlikely allies bound by a child's warning and a common enemy. In that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Not quite trust, not yet, but it's beginning. Emma extended her hand. Then let's find the truth, Mr. Harmon. Jack's calloused fingers closed around hers. For the first time in years, Emma felt the weight on her shoulders lighten, if only by a fraction. She wasn't fighting alone anymore, and perhaps that would make all the difference. Mark Donovan had the weathered look of a man who had seen too much and forgotten none of it. Former detective turned private investigator, he carried himself with the quiet vigilance of someone accustomed to noticing what others missed. His office was above a hardware store, small and sparse, with blinds that filtered the afternoon light into thin stripes across the worn desk. He listened without interruption as Jack explained the situation, Emma adding details about the contracts and the upcoming signing. When they finished, Mark leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. Let me get this straight. You want to record a confession from two high-powered executives who are about to commit securities fraud worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And you came to me instead of the SEC because I need absolute discretion, Emma said. If I'm wrong, I've destroyed relationships that built this company. If I'm right but can't prove it definitively, they'll bury me. Mark's gaze was assessing. And you trust this information because... His eyes shifted to Ethan, who sat quietly in the corner chair, too small for his feet to touch the floor. Because sometimes the truth comes from unexpected places, Jack answered. And because I've verified parts of it myself, the contracts are real. The clauses are buried but clear. Mark nodded slowly. This state has one-party consent for recordings. If you're part of the conversation, you can legally record it without telling the others. As for video surveillance, since you own the company, Ms. Morgan, you can authorize cameras in the boardroom. It's your property. Emma leaned forward. So you'll help us? Mark studied her for a long moment. You understand what you're asking? These people aren't just colleagues. They've been in your life for over a decade. This will get ugly, personal. Emma didn't flinch. They made it personal when they decided to steal what I built. Mark's expression softened slightly. He reached into a drawer and pulled out several small devices. A body recorder no bigger than a car key, a pen that wasn't just a pen, and two coin-sized buttons. Ground rules, he said firmly. We record lawfully or we don't record at all. The boardroom is your property, so hidden cameras are fine with owner authorization. I'll need that in writing, clear? Emma nodded. No scripts, Mark continued. We're not cops, so entrapment doesn't apply. But juries hate performances. Don't bait, don't lead. Ask the questions you'd normally ask. Let them brag. Timestamps beat charm. Ethan watched with wide eyes as Mark demonstrated how each device worked. Jack placed a protective hand on his son's shoulder, pride and concern battling within him. What about Ethan? Jack asked quietly. Diana already made a veiled threat. If they suspect he knows something. Mark's eyes hardened. Then we keep him far away from this. Kids aren't part of the equation. Emma looked at Ethan, then back to Jack. I'll make sure building security knows Ethan is to be kept safe at all times. And once this is over, I'll personally ensure there are consequences for threatening a child. The fierceness in her voice surprised even her. When had she begun to care so much about this boy she barely knew? Mark outlined the plan. Emma would wear the body recorder during the board meeting. Backup cameras would be placed in the smoke detector and AV closet. All devices would be synced to standardized time for legal purposes. As they prepared to leave, Mark pulled Jack aside while Emma knelt to speak with Ethan. You sure about this? Mark murmured. Getting involved in corporate warfare isn't exactly your style these days. Jack watched Emma with his son, noting how she spoke to Ethan not with condescension, but with genuine respect, the way she listened intently as he explained something from his sketchbook. "Sometimes you don't choose the fight," he said quietly. "Sometimes it finds you. And sometimes what's right matters more than what's comfortable." Mark clapped him on the shoulder, something like understanding passing between old friends. "Just be careful. People with money and power play by different rules." Jack nodded, his eyes still on Emma and Ethan. "So do people with nothing left to lose." The sun was setting as they left Mark's office, casting long shadows across the street. Tomorrow would bring the confrontation they were all preparing for. But tonight, as they walked together toward Jack's truck, CEO, maintenance man, and a small boy who had set everything in motion, they shared a sense of purpose that transcended their differences. The battle lines were drawn, the trap was set. And this time the prey had become the hunter. The day of the board meeting dawned clear and cold. Emma Morgan stood at her office window, watching the city wake beneath her. The weight of the recorder beneath her blazer felt alien against her ribs, a constant reminder of what was at stake. She'd barely slept, running through scenarios, rehearsing questions, preparing for every contingency. But nothing could fully prepare her for facing people she'd trusted for years, knowing they had betrayed her. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jack. "E is safe with Mrs. Patel. I'm in position. M has set everything up. Remember, just be yourself." A faint smile touched her lips. Just be yourself. Such simple advice, yet somehow steadying. For too long, she'd been the Emma Morgan others expected. Decisive, unflappable, perhaps a bit too trusting of her inner circle. Today, she would be the Emma Morgan she needed to be. Observant, strategic, and unwilling to be anyone's fool. A knock at her door announced Ryan's arrival. His silver tie gleamed, his smile as polished as ever. "Big day, Emma. The Kimura representatives are already in the conference room." He handed her a slim folder. "Talking points, just the highlights. You know how they appreciate brevity." She accepted it with a practiced smile. "Thank you, Ryan. 15 years together and you still anticipate my every need." Was it her imagination, or did something flicker behind his eyes? Satisfaction, perhaps, or guilt? "That's what partnerships are for," he replied smoothly. "Diana's already walking them through the preliminary numbers. We should join them." As they walked toward the boardroom, Emma felt the recorder press against her ribs with each step, just beneath her heart. How fitting. The boardroom hummed with quiet conversation when they entered. Diana's crimson nails flashed as she gestured towards a projection screen showing growth projections. The Kimura Tech representatives, 3 men in impeccable suits, nodded appreciatively. Board members lined both sides of the table, including Stephen Jameson, whose name she'd found on that buried committee list. Everyone rose as Emma entered. Smiles, nods, the choreography of corporate respect. If she hadn't known better, she might have believed it was genuine. As she took her seat at the head of the table, her gaze swept the room, noting the smoke detector where Mark had placed one camera, the AV closet door concealing another. Everything was in place. Diana slid a thick binder toward her, yellow tabs protruding from its edges like tiny flags. "All the signature points are marked," she said. "We've simplified everything for efficiency." Emma's finger tapped the cover lightly. "Before we begin, I'd like to review the structure one more time, for our guests' benefit." She smiled at the Kimura representatives. "Ryan, perhaps you could summarize the side letter for the record?" Ryan didn't miss a beat. "Of course. The side letter allocates discretionary funds routed through a Cayman trust. Pure liquidity management." Diana added smoothly. "It also keeps strategic partners incentivized. Confidentiality protects shareholder value." Emma felt the recorder warm against her skin. "Say the number," she pressed. Ryan's smile widened, confident, almost triumphant. 200 million, deferred tax exposure. Everyone wins. The room stilled. A cough, a chair shifting. Emma kept her expression neutral, though her heart raced. 200 million siphoned offshore, she repeated, voice steady as stone. "And you admit this is your design?" Ryan chuckled. "Admit its brilliance. This is how companies survive. Without it, Morgan collapses. You should be thanking me." Diana's voice slid in, coaxing. "Investors already agreed. You're the last signature. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Emma's gaze sharpened. Harder for whom? Outside the glass walls, Jack moved quietly with a mop, his presence so commonplace that no one gave him a second glance. But his ears caught every word, his eyes noting every reaction. Ethan's drawing pressed in his pocket like a brand. He wanted to storm in, to tear Ryan from his chair. But not yet. Not until Emma had what she needed. At the table, Mark sat quietly disguised as a compliance consultant. His pen clicked once discreetly, marking the time. Emma turned a page, deliberate. This side letter, was it disclosed in the SEC filing? Ryan's smirk returned, sharper. Of course not. Some truths don't belong in sunlight. Diana's tone dripped with condescension. Emma, every empire is built on shadows. Yours is no different. Emma's reply cut the air. Empires built on shadows collapse. Morgan deserves better. Ryan's face hardened. Careful. Without us, you're nothing but a figurehead. We carried you after the scandal. We buried the whispers. You owe us. I don't owe you silence. A murmur rippled through the directors. Jameson, gray-haired and supposedly loyal, finally spoke. Ryan, 200 million isn't liquidity management. It's fraud. The word landed like a gavel. Diana's composure cracked, pen tapping too fast. Ryan slammed his palm on the table. You think the DOJ cares about accounting footnotes? We built this machine. We can bury any noise she makes. He jabbed a finger at Emma. She doesn't have the guts. Emma lifted her chin. Courage isn't the problem. Evidence isn't either. Ryan's eyes flicked to her jacket. His smirk returned, brittle. A toy recorder? Chain of custody? Admissibility? You think this holds up? Mark's voice entered for the first time, calm as stone. Chain of custody is intact. This meeting was authorized. One-party consent jurisdiction. The audio's clean. Video too. Every head turned. Ryan's smirk shattered. Diana froze. You? Ryan spat. Who are you? Mark met his stare. Someone who remembers what justice sounds like. The board fractured into whispers. Diana scrambling for her phone, Ryan surging to his feet. Emma stayed seated, steady as bedrock. You wanted my signature. Here it is. She signed it, not Ryan's packet, but the compliance authorization. Mark slid forward, sealing the evidence chain. Ryan's face flushed crimson. You think you've won? You don't know who I answer to. You don't know what's coming. Emma finally rose, her voice carrying like a bell. I don't need to know, because when the truth leaves this room, it doesn't come back. Outside, Jack exhaled, chest heaving. He had seen the moment the mask cracked, the moment lies turned brittle. He knew what had caused Emma to stand in that fire, and that she hadn't stood alone. Through the glass, their eyes met. For a heartbeat in the middle of war, there was something unshakable between them. Trust. And as security entered, Ryan's shouts echoing down the corridor, Jack whispered to himself. The truth turned on. The first sound was the radio, two clipped syllables crackling outside the boardroom doors. The second was the command, sharp as a blade. Federal agents. Nobody move. The double doors opened in one sweep. Dark windbreakers filled the room, block letters FBI stamped across their backs. Their movements were quiet, practiced, efficient. An older agent with gray at his temples stepped forward, palm raised. Ryan Sullivan, Diana Hayes, hands where I can see them. Pens froze. Chairs stilled. Even the skyline outside seemed to pause. Ryan tried to laugh. This is corporate theater, agent. You're interrupting a board meeting, then I'll be brief. The agent said, Mr. Sullivan, Ms. Hayes, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. We have search warrants, asset freeze orders, and preservation notices for all systems. Stand. A sound followed, unmistakable metal, kissing metal. Click, click. The room inhaled as one. Diana's voice broke. You can't. This is a misunderstanding. We were protecting shareholder value. The agent didn't look at her. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. Across the table, Emma sat very still, her hand resting over the recorder hidden in her blazer. She didn't smile. She didn't flinch. When Ryan's eyes finally met hers, she saw what arrogance looks like when it realizes it's mortal. You did this, he hissed. I told the truth, she said evenly. It walked here on its own. Mark Rivera stood. The quiet consultant dropped his disguise. From his bag, he produced a sealed evidence pouch. Chain of custody begins now, he said, voice cool, professional. Primary audio from Ms. Morgan, secondary audio under her chair, 2 cameras, ceiling sensor and AV vent, all time synced. My authorization letters and placement log are inside. The agent checked the seals and nodded. Thank you for keeping this clean. He gestured to his team. Photograph everything. Bag all devices, laptops, in the red briefcase by Mr. Sullivan. Everything logged. One director whispered, Agent, what happens to the company today? The agent replied, it keeps breathing. Our orders freeze the money and preserve the records. Your job is to cooperate. Ryan lurched to his feet, cuffs biting his wrists. You think you've won? You don't know the people behind me. Emma rose, her voice was steady. No, but now they know me. The agents led Ryan and Diana out. Jack waited in the corridor. He didn't gloat. He simply watched, relief softening the tension in his shoulders. As Diana passed, she cut him a sideways glance, her old threat in a thin smile. He spoke clearly so the hall could hear. You said kids have accidents when parents aren't careful. For the first time, something flickered across her face. Shame, or maybe calculation. She looked away. Inside the boardroom, agents cataloged evidence. Mark initialed seals. Emma exhaled, a small tremor shaking loose from her chest. Jack stepped forward as if finally invited into the space she had held alone. You held, he said. She nodded. Her eyes were bright. Only because you taught me how to be boring. A laugh slipped out of him. Boring wins in court. Boring saved a company. Truth did that, he said. Boring just carried it. An agent with kind eyes approached. Ms. Morgan, we'll need your statement at the field office this afternoon. You're not under investigation. You're a witness. We'll arrange a secure exit. Emma looked toward the elevators, the glass walls, the hundreds of employees who had no idea the ground had shifted beneath them. Give me 5 minutes, she said. I need to speak to my people. 5, the agent agreed. She turned to Mark. Call comms, internal only. We state facts. We protect everyone who wasn't involved. Jack spoke softly. Ethan's with Mrs. Patel. I can keep him away until... Bring him, Emma said quickly, surprising herself. Let him see the world when it tells the truth. The lobby buzzed with rumors. Security held a loose cordon. Phones hovered. Emma stepped onto a small riser, normally reserved for holiday flowers. She had no speech. She didn't need one. Some of you heard what happened upstairs, she began, voice steady through the atrium. Law enforcement executed warrants in our boardroom. 2 senior executives were arrested. They do not speak for Morgan. They will never speak for Morgan again. A ripple passed through the crowd. Heads turned, whispers quieted. We are not an empire built on shadows, she continued. We are a company built on work, your work. Your paychecks will clear. Your projects will continue. Our records are being preserved. If anyone asks you to hide anything, refuse. If anyone threatens you, you come to me. Silence fell. Not fear this time, but trust beginning to grow. Then a child's voice cut through. Ms. Morgan! Ethan barreled through the crowd, hair wild, backpack bouncing. Jack followed, scanning faces, steady as ever. Ethan didn't stop. He collided with Emma, wrapping small arms around her waist. For the first time in years, Emma let herself fold. She crouched down and held him tight, the world shrinking to his heartbeat against her ribs. You saved me, she whispered. Ethan pulled back, serious. You saved you. I just told you where the quiet was. Jack stood close enough to protect, far enough to give space. His chest finally slowed, the storm easing inside him. Agent Morales, the kind-eyed one, spoke gently. Ms. Morgan, we can escort you now. Emma smoothed Ethan's hair. She looked at Jack. Come with me, she said, then to Ethan. And you, counselor? I'm not a counselor, Ethan protested. You are today, she answered. The field office was plain, neutral carpet, plastic cups of water, fluorescent light, no skyline, no mahogany, just honesty. Bạn hoàn toàn đúng, phần 2 này vẫn chỉ có khoảng 6.000 từ, trong khi outline yêu cầu 9.000 1.000 từ. Tôi sẽ viết lại phần 2 với đầy đủ độ dài theo yêu cầu. phát triển thêm các tình tiết trong outline và đảm bảo đạt đủ số lượng từ yêu cầu. The field office was plain, neutral carpet, plastic cups of water, fluorescent light. No skyline, no mahogany, just honesty. Emma gave her statement, dates, names, the words Ryan had trusted to the dark. Mark handed over sealed bags. Device A, body audio. Device B, chair audio. Devices C and D, cameras. Signed and logged. Agent Morales accepted them. We'll present this to the U.S. Attorney today. First court appearance tomorrow. With these recordings, this case has teeth. Ethan raised his hand, small voice serious. Will they go to prison? Morales leaned forward. That's up to a judge and jury. But when people steal, we make it hard for them to keep what isn't theirs. Ethan nodded, satisfied. Emma turned to Jack. I owe you. He stopped her. Don't finish that. Owing turns gratitude into a contract. His voice softened. Let it be family instead. Something unguarded passed between them. Recognition, not rescue. The sedan glided through evening traffic, leaving the federal building behind. Emma sat in the back beside Jack, Ethan between them, exhausted but triumphant. The past 24 hours had drained them all, yet there was a strange peace in the aftermath of truth revealed. I've never done anything like that before, Emma confessed, her voice low so as not to disturb Ethan, who had finally dozed off against his father's shoulder. Jack glanced at her. Like what? Bring down corporate criminals? Wear a wire? Work with the FBI? Emma's smile was tired but genuine. Trust someone I barely know with everything that matters. Jack's expression softened. You trusted Ethan first. I was just along for the ride. That's not true, she said, holding his gaze. Ethan warned me, but you helped me see it wasn't just a child's imagination. You could have dismissed him, convinced me to do the same. Instead, you stood in the truth with me. The car slowed as they approached Jack's modest apartment building, a brick walk-up that stood in stark contrast to the sleek tower where Morgan Innovations reigned. Emma found herself studying it, imagining the life contained within. Jack making dinner while Ethan did homework, bedtime stories, morning routines built around a child's needs rather than corporate schedules. Jack shifted Ethan in his arms as the driver opened the door. Thanks for the ride. And everything else. Emma hesitated, then made a decision. Let me come up. Just for a minute. I'd like to see him safely settled. Jack's surprise was evident, but he nodded, adjusting Ethan's weight against his chest. The apartment was small but meticulously organized. Children's books arranged by color on a low shelf, a homework station set up by the window, photos of a smiling woman, Sarah, Jack's late wife, displayed with reverent care. Emma noted how Jack moved through the space, every motion efficient, practiced, the movements of a man who had learned to parent alone. She waited in the living room as Jack put Ethan to bed, studying the photographs, piecing together the life Jack had lived before their paths crossed. Sarah Harmon had been beautiful, with Ethan's same thoughtful eyes and open smile. In every photo with Jack, they seemed to lean toward each other, as if gravity itself pulled them together. You would have liked her, Jack said quietly, returning from Ethan's room. Emma turned, caught studying his past. I'm sure I would have. She was brilliant, Jack continued, moving to stand beside Emma at the row of photographs. Structural engineer. Could solve problems most people couldn't even see. His finger traced the edge of one frame. Sarah in a hard hat, laughing at the camera. That's how we met. She was consulting on a power grid project I was managing. Emma watched his face, the gentle pride, the lingering grief. How long were you together? 12 years, he said. High school sweethearts who actually made it work. Everyone said we were crazy getting married at 22. He smiled at the memory. They were probably right, but we were too stubborn to care. What happened? Emma asked softly, though she already knew the outline. Jack's expression clouded. Pancreatic cancer. By the time they found it, it had already spread. He moved to another photo, Sarah holding a toddler Ethan. She fought like hell for 2 years. Not just for herself, but for him. She made me promise not to let grief steal his childhood. A silence fell between them, weighted with Jack's loss and Emma's unexpected connection to it. She found herself wanting to know everything about Sarah, about the love that had shaped Jack into the man who stood before her. You kept your promise. she said finally. Ethan is extraordinary. Jack nodded, his throat working. He is. Gets that from her. The way he sees things others miss. The way he stands up for what's right. Emma's hand moved of its own accord, resting lightly on his forearm. And from you, she said, the courage, the kindness, that's both of you in him. Jack looked down at her hand on his arm, then up to her face. For a moment, something electric passed between them, a recognition of shared values, of mutual respect that had somehow, in the crucible of the past few weeks, transformed into something deeper. Then Jack stepped back, breaking the connection. It's late, he said, his voice rougher than before. You should get home. Tomorrow will be complicated. Emma nodded, suddenly aware of the intimacy of standing in his home, surrounded by his memories, when they had known each other such a short time. You're right, she said. I should go. At the door, she paused. Jack, what you said earlier about family. She hesitated, unused to the vulnerability required for such conversations. I want you to know that whatever happens with the case, with Ryan and Diana, you and Ethan aren't alone in this anymore. Jack studied her face in the dim hallway light. Is that the CEO talking? Or Emma? Her answer came without hesitation. Emma, just Emma. His smile was small but genuine. Good, because I think Emma is someone Ethan and I would like to know better. She left with the words echoing in her mind, a warmth spreading through her chest that had nothing to do with business and everything to do with connection. The following weeks brought a flurry of activity as the case against Ryan and Diana built momentum. Emma restructured her executive team, promoting loyal employees who had been overshadowed by Ryan's dominance. The Kimura Tech deal was salvaged, renegotiated with transparent terms that benefited both companies. Morgan Innovation stock dipped, then rebounded as the market recognized the company's swift action to address the fraud. Through it all, Emma found herself drawn more and more to the Harmon apartment, bringing dinner after late meetings, helping Ethan with homework, while Jack worked evening shifts, creating a routine that felt increasingly natural. One Thursday evening, nearly a month after the arrests, Emma arrived with Thai food to find Ethan sitting cross-legged on the living room floor surrounded by photographs. Hi, Ms. Morgan, the boy called cheerfully. I'm making a memory book for school. About Mom. Emma set the food on the counter, approaching carefully, aware of the sacred ground she was entering. May I see? Ethan nodded, patting the carpet beside him. I'm putting my favorite pictures of her and then writing stories about each one. He pointed to a photo of Sarah with flour on her nose, laughing. Like this one. Mom tried to make a birthday cake for Dad, but forgot the baking powder, so it came out flat as a pancake. We ate it anyway. Emma smiled, settling beside him. It looks like she was fun. She was, Ethan agreed solemnly, and smart, and brave. He looked up at Emma, his eyes searching her face. Dad says you're brave too. That's why the bad guys didn't win. A lump formed in Emma's throat. Your dad is pretty brave himself. I know, Ethan said matter-of-factly. He fights monsters. Monsters? Emma asked, curious. Ethan nodded, selecting another photo for his book. Not real ones. The ones inside. He said everybody has them, but you can choose not to let them win. Out of the mouths of babes, Jack's voice came from the doorway. He stood there in his uniform, having just returned from his shift, watching them with an expression Emma couldn't quite read. Emma rose, suddenly self-conscious about sitting among the intimate photographs of his late wife. I brought dinner, she said, gesturing to the counter. I should have called first. Jack shook his head. You don't need to call, Emma. You're always welcome here. The words were simple, but they settled in her chest like a promise. Ethan gathered his photos, carefully placing them in a folder before helping to set the table, a routine he had clearly fallen into with Emma's regular visits. As they ate, Ethan chattering about his day at school, Emma watched Jack, the ease with which he parented, the gentle corrections, the focused attention he gave his son despite his obvious exhaustion. She had known brilliant CEOs, cunning investors, powerful politicians, but none had impressed her as much as this maintenance man and his unwavering dedication to his child. After dinner, while Jack helped Ethan finish his memory book in the living room, Emma washed dishes, listening to their quiet conversation, the occasional laugh, the comfortable silence between questions. She had almost finished when Jack appeared beside her, dish towel in hand. You don't have to do that, he said, reaching for a wet plate. I don't mind, she replied, passing it to him. It's nice, actually. Grounding. Jack raised an eyebrow. Emma Morgan finds washing dishes grounding? She smiled, flicking water at him playfully. Don't sound so surprised. Before I was Emma Morgan, CEO, I was just Emma, working her way through college waiting tables. I've washed more dishes than you've probably ever seen. Jack looked genuinely startled. I didn't know that. Most people don't, she admitted, handing him another plate. It doesn't fit the narrative of the ruthless businesswoman who clawed her way to the top. Is that how people see you? Jack asked quietly. Emma shrugged. Some. It's easier to be feared than understood in my world. Jack dried the plate with methodical care. And which would you prefer? To be feared or understood? The question caught her off guard, simple yet penetrating to the heart of something she rarely examined. For a long moment she was silent, hands submerged in soapy water. I used to think being feared was safer, she said finally. After what my father did, selling our family company without consulting me, I swore I'd never be vulnerable again. Fear seemed like good armor. And now, Jack prompted. Emma looked up, meeting his gaze. Now I'm standing in your kitchen washing dishes while you ask me questions no one else would dare to. So clearly, something's changed. A smile tugged at the corner of Jack's mouth. Maybe we're both changing. Before she could respond, Ethan called from the living room. Dad, come see. I finished the last page. Jack set down his towel. Be right there, buddy. He looked at Emma. Coming? She nodded, drying her hands. Of course. As she followed Jack into the living room, she realized he was right. They were both changing, their lives subtly recalibrating around one another in ways neither had anticipated when a frightened boy whispered a warning in an elevator. The following Monday, Emma sat in her office reviewing the latest brief from the prosecutors. The case against Ryan and Diana was strengthening daily as investigators uncovered more evidence of their long-running fraud. Both remained in custody, their bail revoked after attempts to contact potential witnesses. Her intercom buzzed. Ms. Morgan, Jack Harmon is here to see you. Emma straightened in her chair, surprised. Jack rarely came to her office, preferring to maintain the separation between his work and their growing personal connection. Send him in. Jack entered, still in his maintenance uniform, his expression unusually tense. What's wrong? Emma asked immediately, rising from her desk. He closed the door behind him. Diana Hayes made bail this morning. Emma's blood ran cold. How? The judge revoked it after her attorney appealed, Jack explained. New judge, new hearing. They've restricted her movements, ankle monitor, the works, but she's out. Emma sank back into her chair. That's not good. No, Jack agreed. But there's more. He hesitated, then continued. On my way up here, I overheard two security guards talking. Apparently, Diana's been seen outside Ethan's school. Emma's head snapped up, eyes flashing. What? Nothing direct. She stayed across the street, just watching. But it was definitely her. That's witness intimidation, Emma said, already reaching for her phone. I'm calling Morales. Jack nodded, pacing the office. I've already spoken to the school, had Ethan added to the restricted pickup list. Only me or Mrs. Patel can get him. Emma waited as the call connected, then quickly explained the situation to Agent Morales. His response was grave but measured. They would investigate, document the incident, but without direct contact, it might not be enough to revoke Diana's bail again. After ending the call, Emma looked up at Jack, noting the tight set of his shoulders. The worry etched into his face. This is my fault, she said quietly. They're targeting Ethan to get to me. Jack shook his head firmly. No, this is on them, not you. Ryan and Diana made their choices long before we got involved. Emma stood, moving around her desk to face him directly. Maybe, but that doesn't change the fact that Ethan is in danger because of his connection to me. To this case. Jack's eyes held hers, unwavering. Ethan was in danger the moment he overheard their plan. Emma, whether you believed him or not, whether you acted on it or not, the danger was already there. We just brought it into the light. His calm certainty steadied her, as it had so many times over the past month. Still, she couldn't shake the guilt that shadowed her whenever she thought of Ethan's vulnerability. What if we got you both away for a while, she suggested. Somewhere safe until the trial? Jack considered this, then shook his head. Running would only teach Ethan that bullies win. Besides, he's finally settled back at school, making friends. I won't disrupt that unless absolutely necessary. Emma admired his resolve, even as she worried. Then what do we do? Jack's answer was simple. We stay vigilant, we protect him together, and we trust that the truth will hold. Together. The word hung between them, weighted with meaning beyond this immediate crisis. Emma found herself studying Jack's face, the steadiness in his eyes, the strength in his jaw, the quiet determination that had drawn her to him from the beginning. Okay, she said finally, together. Jack nodded, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. I should get back to work. I just wanted you to know. As he turned to leave, Emma called after him. Jack, would you and Ethan like to come to my place for dinner tonight? It might be good to get away from your usual routine, just for an evening. He paused, considering. You sure? Your place is pretty fancy for pizza and homework. Emma smiled. I think my fancy place could use a little pizza and homework. The smile Jack returned transformed his tired face. All right, we'll be there. After he left, Emma stood at her office window, looking out at the city sprawled below. The company she'd built, the power she'd amassed, none of it had prepared her for the fierce protectiveness she now felt toward a maintenance man and his extraordinary son. Whatever came next with Diana, with the trial, with the future stretching before them, one thing was certain. She would not let them face it alone. Emma's penthouse glowed with warm light against the darkening sky. She moved through the space, adjusting cushions, arranging flowers, oddly nervous about hosting Jack and Ethan in her home. Her homes had always been showcases, perfect, impersonal spaces designed to impress rather than comfort. Tonight, she wanted something different. The elevator chimed, announcing their arrival. Emma smoothed her casual sweater, so different from her office attire, and opened the door. Ethan burst through first, eyes wide as he took in the expansive space. Wow, you can see the whole city from here. Jack followed more sedately, a bottle of wine in one hand, Ethan's backpack in the other. He'd changed from his uniform into jeans and a button-down shirt, his hair still damp from a recent shower. This is amazing, he said, his gaze taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows, the sleek furnishings, the subtle art on the walls. Emma accepted the wine with a smile. Thank you, and welcome, both of you. Ethan had already raced to the windows, pressing his face against the glass. Look, Dad, you can see our apartment from here. And my school. Jack joined him, pointing out landmarks across the city skyline. Emma watched them, struck by how they transformed her sterile space simply by occupying it. Their voices, their movement, their genuine wonder. It all filled a vacuum she hadn't recognized until now. She'd ordered pizza, remembering Ethan's preference for pepperoni, and set the dining table casually, without the formal place settings she'd use for business associates. As they ate, Ethan regaled her with stories from school, his recent science project on electricity, his newfound popularity after what he called the bad guy catching business. You're famous now, Emma asked, amused. Ethan shrugged, taking another bite of pizza. Not famous, but Joey Miller used to push me around, and now he wants to sit with me at lunch. He thinks I'm a spy or something. Jack frowned. You haven't been telling stories, have you, bud? Ethan shook his head solemnly. No way, I keep secrets. I just said I helped catch some bad guys with Ms. Morgan. He looked at Emma. Is that okay to say? Emma smiled. That's perfectly okay. It's the truth after all. After dinner, Ethan spread his homework across Emma's coffee table while Jack helped her clear the dishes. In the kitchen, away from Ethan's ears, Jack's expression grew serious. Any word from Morales about Diana? He asked quietly. Emma nodded, lowering her voice. They've documented her presence near the school, but her attorney claims she was visiting a friend in the neighborhood. Without direct contact or explicit threats, their hands are tied. Jack's jaw tightened. She's sending a message, letting us know she can get close if she wants to. I know, Emma agreed. I've hired additional security. Discreet but effective. They'll keep an eye on both of you without Ethan knowing. Jack started to protest, but Emma placed a hand on his arm. Please, Jack, let me do this. It will help me sleep at night. The touch lingered between them, warmed through the fabric of his sleeve. Jack's resistance faded as he met her eyes. All right, but just until the trial. They rejoined Ethan in the living room, where he had abandoned homework in favor of examining Emma's bookshelves. He pulled down a large volume of architectural photographs, flipping through with interest. These buildings are amazing, he said. Do you design buildings, Ms. Morgan? Emma sat beside him, smiling. No, I design software that helps buildings work better. Systems that control temperature, security, power usage, things like that. Like what Dad used to do, Ethan asked, before he was a maintenance man? Jack tensed slightly, but Emma responded naturally. Similar, yes. Your dad was an engineer who worked on big systems too. Ethan nodded, continuing to flip through the book. He's really good at fixing things, even the hard stuff that other people can't figure out. I've noticed that, Emma said, glancing at Jack with a smile. He's pretty remarkable. Jack cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the praise. Hey, bud, it's getting late. We should finish that homework and think about heading home. Ethan pouted. But I like it here. Ms. Morgan has cool books, and you can see the stars better from up high. The stars? Emma asked. Jack explained. Ethan's been learning about constellations. We've been trying to spot them from our apartment, but the city lights make it tough. Emma's face lit up. I have just the thing. She led them to a door Ethan hadn't explored yet, opening it to reveal a private terrace with comfortable seating and an unobstructed view of the night sky. Ethan gasped. This is perfect. For the next hour, they sat together on the terrace, Jack pointing out constellations while Ethan tried to match them to the diagrams in a book Emma found on her shelf. The night was cool but not cold, the city sounds muted by their elevation. Emma provided blankets and hot chocolate, watching as Jack patiently guided his son through the cosmos, naming stars with the ease of someone who had studied them often. How did you learn all this? She asked Jack during a quiet moment while Ethan was intently tracing Orion's belt with his finger against the gimbal. Jack smiled, the starlight reflecting in his eyes. Sarah loved astronomy. We used to drive out to the countryside on clear nights, away from the city lights. She knew every constellation, every story behind them. She taught you well, Emma observed. Jack nodded, his gaze returning to the stars. She taught me that the universe is bigger than any problem we face. That perspective matters. Emma followed his gaze upward, letting the vastness of the night sky wash over her. For someone who had spent years focused on corporate conquests and balance sheets, the reminder of her cosmic insignificance was strangely comforting. I think I needed that perspective, she admitted quietly. For all this, before the elevator, before Ethan's warning, I was so focused on building my empire that I forgot why I was building it in the first place. And why were you? Jack asked. Emma considered the question, one she hadn't asked herself in years. To prove I could, she said finally. To show my father he was wrong to sell our family company. To doubt my abilities. She shook her head ruefully. Not the noblest motivation, is it? Jack's response surprised her. I don't know. Building something lasting, something that employs hundreds of people, creates products that matter. That seems pretty noble to me, regardless of what sparked it. His understanding, free of judgment, loosened something tight in Emma's chest. She had grown so accustomed to being assessed, measured against ruthless standards of success, that Jack's simple acceptance felt revolutionary. Ethan's excited voice broke their moment. Dad, Ms. Morgan, I found the Big Dipper. They turned their attention back to the boy, who was bouncing with excitement at his celestial discovery. As they huddled together following his pointing finger to confirm the sighting, Emma was struck by how natural it felt. This small constellation of their own making, formed against all odds beneath the infinite sky. The next morning, Emma arrived at her office earlier than usual, still warm from the memory of stargazing with Jack and Ethan. She had insisted on having her driver take them home, watching from her terrace as their car disappeared into the city grid below, already anticipating when she would see them next. Her secretary buzzed shortly after she settled at her desk. Ms. Morgan? There's a Ms. Hayes here to see you. Emma froze, her coffee cup halfway to her lips. Diana? Yes, ma'am. She says it's urgent. Emma's mind raced. Diana Hayes, out on bail, had the audacity to come to her office after lurking near Ethan's school. Call security, she instructed, and the FBI. Before her secretary could respond, the door swung open. Diana Hayes stood there, elegant as ever despite the circumstances, her crimson nails replaced by unvarnished simplicity, her designer suit traded for something more subdued. The ankle monitor peeked from beneath her pant leg, a reminder of her precarious freedom. Hello, Emma, Diana said, closing the door behind her. Don't bother with security. I'll be brief. Emma rose from her desk, anger pulsing through her veins. You have exactly 10 seconds to explain why I shouldn't have you arrested for violating the terms of your bail. Diana's composure slipped just slightly. Because I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to warn you. Emma laughed coldly. Warn me? About what? More of Ryan's schemes from behind bars? Diana moved further into the office, her movements careful, measured. Ryan has friends, Emma. Powerful friends who don't appear on any organizational chart. They're not happy about what happened. So I've gathered from your little surveillance operation at Ethan's school, Emma retorted. Was intimidating a child really the best strategy you could come up with? For the first time, Diana looked genuinely confused. What are you talking about? Emma studied her, searching for the lie. Don't play innocent. You were seen watching Ethan's school yesterday morning. Diana's face drained of color. That wasn't me. The certainty in her voice gave Emma pause. Then who? Diana sank into a chair, her composure cracking. I don't know, but that's what I came to tell you. This isn't over, Emma. Ryan's been making calls from detention. He's unhinged, obsessed with revenge. Emma remained standing, unwilling to sit in Diana's presence. Why tell me this? Why not tell your attorney or the FBI? Diana's laugh was hollow. And say what? That I have a feeling my former colleague is orchestrating something from jail? That wouldn't exactly help my case. Then why warn me at all? Emma pressed. After everything you did, why would you care what happens to me or the Harmons? Diana was silent for a long moment, her gaze fixed on the city beyond Emma's windows. I've done many things I'm not proud of, she said finally. Fraud, deception, manipulation, all fair game in business, at least the way Ryan and I played it. But I draw the line at children. Always have. Emma wanted to disbelieve her, to attribute malicious intent to this unexpected visit. But something in Diana's expression, a vulnerability she'd never shown before, gave her pause. If what you're saying is true, she said carefully, then who was at Ethan's school? Diana shook her head. I don't know. But Ryan has connections beyond the corporate world. People who don't mind getting their hands dirty. The implication sent a chill down Emma's spine. Are you suggesting he would harm a child? Diana met her gaze directly. I'm suggesting he would do whatever it takes to discredit your testimony, to create reasonable doubt. If that means frightening a boy into recanting what he heard, or pressuring his father. She left the thought unfinished. Emma's phone buzzed, security responding to her earlier call. She ignored it, focused entirely on the woman before her. Why should I believe anything you say? She asked, though with less hostility than before. Diana stood, smoothing her subdued outfit with hands that trembled slightly. You shouldn't, son, but I've given my statement to the prosecutors. I'm cooperating now. Ryan knows it, and he's not happy. She moved toward the door, then paused. Just watch out for them. The boy and his father. Ryan doesn't forget, and he doesn't forgive. After Diana left, escorted by security to the lobby, Emma sat at her desk, mind racing. She immediately called Jack, relief flooding her when he answered on the second ring. I need you and Ethan to come to my office, she said without preamble. Now, Jack's voice sharpened with concern. What's happened? Diana was just here. Emma quickly relayed the conversation, the warning, the implication that someone else had been watching Ethan's school. We'll be there in 20 minutes, Jack promised. After hanging up, Emma called Agent Morales, explaining Diana's visit and requesting additional protection for Jack and Ethan. By the time they arrived at her office, a plan was forming in her mind, one that would require Jack's agreement and perhaps a leap of faith from all of them. Jack entered with Ethan, his face tense with concern. Emma had never been so relieved to see them both safe. Diana was here? Jack asked immediately. What exactly did she say? Emma recounted the conversation in detail while Ethan explored her office, examining the architectural books she'd set aside for him after their evening together. You believe her? Jack's skepticism was evident. Emma considered the question carefully. I believe she's genuinely afraid of Ryan, and I believe someone was watching Ethan's school who wasn't Diana. Jack ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Emma now recognized as a sign of his agitation. So what do we do? Emma glanced at Ethan, then back to Jack. I have an idea, but I wanted to discuss it with you first. She lowered her voice. What would you think about staying at my place until the trial? Both of you. My building has security, restricted access, and enough space that Ethan wouldn't feel confined. Jack's eyebrows rose in surprise. You want us to move in with you? Emma felt a flush rise to her cheeks. Temporarily, for safety. The penthouse has 2 guest rooms. You'd have your privacy. Jack studied her face, searching for something beyond her words. And what would people think? The CEO of Morgan Innovations housing her maintenance man and his son? Emma straightened. I don't care what people think. I care about keeping you both safe. Their eyes held, a current passing between them that transcended the practicality of her offer. Jack's expression softened. I'll need to think about it. Talk to Ethan. Of course, Emma agreed. Take whatever time you need. Ethan's voice interrupted them. Dad, look, Miss Morgan has a telescope. Can we use it next time we look at stars? They turned to find Ethan pointing excitedly to a sleek telescope in the corner of Emma's office, one she'd purchased years ago on a whim and rarely used. Jack smiled at his son's enthusiasm. Maybe, buddy, if Ms. Morgan doesn't mind. I don't mind at all, Emma said, her heart lightening at Ethan's simple joy and discovery. In fact, I was just inviting you and your dad to stay at my place for a while. Would you like that? Ethan's eyes widened. At your place with the big windows and the terrace? Can I use the telescope every night? Jack shot Emma a look, half exasperation, half amusement. I said we'd think about it, bud. But Ethan was already planning, his excitement bubbling over. We could see all the constellations from there, Dad, and maybe Ms. Morgan could help me with my science project on electricity since she knows about building systems. The boys' eagerness made them both smile, momentarily easing the tension of Diana's warning. As Jack gently reined in Ethan's expectations, reminding him that no decision had been made, Emma watched them together. Father and son, a unit forged through loss and love, now inexplicably intertwined with her own fate. The decision came sooner than Emma expected. That evening, as she worked late in her office, her phone rang, Jack's number flashing on the screen. We need to take you up on that offer, he said without preamble, his voice tight with controlled fear. Someone broke into our apartment. Emma's blood ran cold. Are you both all right? We're fine, Jack assured her. We weren't home. But the place is trashed. Laptop stolen, drawers emptied. It looks like a robbery, but the timing is too convenient, Emma finished. Where are you now? Police station. They're taking a report, but without evidence linking it to Ryan. I understand, Emma cut in. My driver will pick you up in 20 minutes. Pack whatever you need for a few weeks. After ending the call, Emma moved quickly, making arrangements for Jack and Ethan's stay. She called her housekeeper to prepare the guest rooms, her security team to expect them, and finally Agent Morales to report the break-in. By the time Jack and Ethan arrived at her penthouse, Emma had transformed the space to accommodate them. The second guest room now featured a desk for Ethan's homework, bookshelves stocked with age-appropriate titles, and star-shaped lights that cast constellations on the ceiling when dimmed. Ethan's eyes widened as he took in the room. This is for me? Emma nodded, suddenly uncertain. I hope it's okay. I wasn't sure what you'd like. It's awesome! Ethan exclaimed, immediately examining the star projector with fascination. Jack stood in the doorway, his expression complex, gratitude warring with discomfort at accepting such help. This is too much, Emma. She shook her head. It's nothing. Really. After Ethan was settled, exploring his temporary home with increasing excitement, Jack and Emma retreated to her kitchen. She poured them both a glass of wine, sensing he needed it after the events of the day. The police think it was random, Jack said, turning the wine glass in his hands without drinking. No signs of targeted searching, no messages left behind. But you don't believe that, Emma observed. Jack's jaw tightened. It's too coincidental. First someone watching the school, now this, right after Diana warns you. Emma nodded, her own suspicions aligning with his. Did they take anything important? Documents related to the case? No, that's all with Morales. But they took Ethan's laptop, the one he uses for school. Jack's expression darkened, and they went through his room thoroughly. His drawers were emptied, his bed stripped. The violation of his son's space clearly affected Jack more deeply than the loss of any possession. Emma reached across the counter, covering his hand with hers. He's safe now, she reminded him gently. You both are. Jack looked down at their joined hands, then up to her face. Why are you doing all this, Emma? The security, the rooms, taking us in? It's far beyond what most people would do for a maintenance man and his son. The question hung between them, demanding a level of honesty Emma rarely allowed herself. She could have deflected, cited professional responsibility, or simple human decency. Instead, she chose the truth. Because you matter to me, she said simply. Both of you. More than I expected. More than makes sense given how short a time we've known each other. But there it is. Jack's expression softened, his hand turning beneath hers until their palms met, fingers intertwining. We feel the same way, he admitted quietly. Ethan asks about you constantly. And he trailed off, the words catching in his throat. Emma waited, her pulse quickening at the intensity in his eyes. I find myself thinking about you at the strangest moments, he continued finally. Wondering what you'd think of something Ethan said, or how you'd handle a situation at work. It's like you've become part of our rhythm somehow. The admission hung in the air between them, vulnerable and true. Emma felt something shift in her chest, a wall crumbling, a door opening to possibilities she hadn't allowed herself to consider. Before she could respond, Ethan's voice called from the living room. Dad, Miss Morgan, come see the stars from the terrace. The moment broke, but something had changed, an acknowledgement of feelings that could no longer be ignored. Jack squeezed her hand once before releasing it, a promise of conversation to come. Be right there, buddy, he called back. As they joined Ethan on the terrace, where he was already setting up the telescope with remarkable competence, Emma felt a sense of rightness settle over her. This unusual arrangement, CEO, maintenance man, and a precocious child sharing space and safety, might raise eyebrows in her corporate world. But for the first time in years, Emma Morgan didn't care what others thought. She only cared about the two people now under her roof, and the surprising family they were becoming. The days fell into an unexpected rhythm. Jack continued his maintenance work, though Emma had secretly arranged for enhanced security to monitor him throughout the building. Ethan attended school, now driven by Emma's security team rather than taking the bus. Evenings found them gathered around Emma's dining table, sharing meals and stories, homework, and laughter. On the third night, as Ethan slept soundly in his star-filled room, Jack and Emma sat on the terrace, the city lights a glittering tapestry below them. The air had cooled with approaching autumn, and Emma had provided blankets, wrapping one around her shoulders as they sipped wine in comfortable silence. I've been thinking, Jack said finally, his voice low in the quiet night, about what happens after the trial. Emma turned to face him, her heart quickening. After? Jack nodded, his profile strong against the city glow. Assuming Ryan and Diana are convicted, assuming the danger passes, he hesitated. What happens to us? The question encompassed so much. Their unusual living arrangement, the growing connection between them, Ethan's attachment to Emma, the future stretching before them with all its complexity. What do you want to happen? Emma asked carefully. Jack was silent for a long moment, collecting his thoughts. For all this, before the elevator, before Ethan's warning, I had a simple plan. Raise my son, work my job, keep our heads above water. He looked at her, his eyes reflecting the city lights. Now everything's different. Different how? Emma pressed gently. Jack gestured between them. This. Us. The way Ethan lights up when you walk into a room. The way He paused, searching for words. The way I find myself wanting to share things with you. Wanting your perspective, your company. Emma's breath caught. And is that a problem? Jack's smile was rueful. It could be. You're Emma Morgan, CEO of a tech empire. I'm a maintenance man with a complicated past and a young son. Is that how you see yourself? Emma challenged. Just a maintenance man? Jack considered the question. No, he admitted. I'm an engineer who chose a different path. A father who prioritized his son over his career. A man who's learning to trust again after losing everything that mattered. His honesty humbled her. That's who I see too, she said softly. Not your job title, not your bank account. Just you, Jack Harmon, the most honorable man I've ever known. Something shifted in Jack's expression. Surprise followed by a vulnerability that matched her own. Emma, he began, then stopped, struggling with words that wouldn't come. Instead of speaking, he reached for her hand, his calloused fingers warm against her skin. The touch said what words couldn't yet express: connection, hope, possibility. They sat like that for a long time, hands joined beneath the vast city sky, each contemplating a future neither had anticipated. No declarations were made, no promises offered beyond the simple truth of their intertwined fingers. But as the night deepened around them, both felt the subtle shift of individual orbits aligning into something new, a constellation of their own making, unexpected yet somehow inevitable. Inside, Ethan slept peacefully, surrounded by projected stars, unaware of the real connection forming on the terrace between the two adults who had become his protectors. And across the city, in a room far less comfortable, Ryan Sullivan made calls that would set in motion events designed to shatter their fragile peace. The storm was coming. But tonight, in this moment of quiet understanding, Emma and Jack found shelter in each other, a foundation strong enough, perhaps, to weather whatever lay ahead. 2 weeks into their stay at Emma's penthouse, the pretrial hearings for Ryan and Diana's case began. Each day brought new revelations as prosecutors laid out the evidence of their fraud, and each evening brought Jack and Emma closer as they navigated their unexpected living arrangement. Ethan thrived in the new environment, his nightmares about the break-in gradually fading as he settled into the safety of Emma's home. One evening, as they prepared for bed after a particularly grueling day of testimony, Emma's phone rang. Agent Morales' number flashed on the screen. "We have a situation," he said without preamble. "Ryan Sullivan made bail an hour ago." Emma's grip tightened on the phone. "That's impossible." The judge denied. "New hearing, new judge," Morales explained, his voice grim. His attorney argued that Diana's release without incident proved he wasn't a flight risk. Emma's mind raced. "What about the restraining order?" "Still in place," Morales assured her. "He can't come within 500 feet of you, Jack, or Ethan." "But Emma," he hesitated. "Sullivan has resources, connections. The ankle monitor will track his movements, but it can't stop him from making calls." Emma closed her eyes, processing this new threat. "I understand. Thank you for letting me know." After ending the call, she found Jack in the kitchen, making Ethan's lunch for the next day. The domesticity of the scene, Jack moving easily through her space, preparing food for his son, struck her with unexpected force. In just weeks, they had created something precious, something she was now determined to protect. "Ryan's out," she said quietly, watching Jack's hands still over the sandwich he was making. "Morales just called." Jack's expression hardened, his jaw tightening. "When?" "An hour ago. The restraining order is still in effect, but he's resourceful," Jack finished, "and dangerous." Emma nodded, moving closer until she stood beside him at the counter. "What do you want to do?" Jack's answer surprised her. "Nothing different. We keep living, we stay vigilant. We don't let him win by making us afraid." Emma studied his face, the resolve in his eyes, the quiet strength that had drawn her to him from the beginning. "Are you sure? We could arrange for you and Ethan to go somewhere else, somewhere Ryan wouldn't think to look." Jack shook his head. "Running teaches Ethan the wrong lesson. That bullies win. That fear dictates our choices." His eyes met hers, unwavering. "Besides, I'm not leaving you to face this alone." The simple declaration settled in Emma's chest like a vow. She reached for his hand, finding it still tense from the news. "I was going to say the same thing to you." Their fingers interlaced naturally, the gesture now familiar between them. In the weeks since the break-in, these small touches had become their silent language. Reassurance, support, a growing affection neither had fully named but both acknowledged in quiet moments like this. "We should tell Ethan," Jack said finally. "Not everything, but enough that he understands the importance of staying close to us." Emma nodded. "Tomorrow morning, let him sleep tonight." They stood together in the kitchen, hands joined, the half-made sandwich forgotten between them. Outside, the city pulsed with its endless rhythm, unaware of the small drama unfolding in the penthouse high above. Two people from different worlds, drawn together by a child's warning and now bound by something deeper, facing a threat that loomed larger with each passing day. Whatever came next, they would face it as they stood now, together. The next morning brought an unexpected development. Emma woke to find Ethan already at the breakfast table, excitedly showing Jack something on his tablet. Their hushed voices carried through the open plan of the penthouse, punctuated by Ethan's occasional gasp of wonder. "Morning," Emma said, curious about their intense focus. "What's got you two so engrossed?" Ethan looked up, his face alight with excitement. "Ms. Morgan, Dad's showing me the plans for a treehouse he designed for our backyard." Emma raised an eyebrow, glancing at Jack. "Treehouse?" Jack's expression was a mix of embarrassment and something deeper. "Hope, perhaps. I couldn't sleep last night," he explained, "after the news about Ryan, so I started sketching." He shrugged, attempting casualness. "Just something to look forward to, for when this is all over." Emma moved closer, peering at the tablet. The design was beautiful, complex yet practical, with multiple levels, a rope ladder, even a small observatory dome with a cutout for a telescope. It wasn't just a treehouse, it was a vision of a future beyond the current danger, a promise of normalcy and joy. "It's amazing," she said softly. "Where would you build it?" Jack hesitated, then swiped to a new image, a small house with a modest yard, a mature oak tree dominating one corner. "I found this place online. It's a few neighborhoods over. Nothing fancy, but it has good bones. And that oak is perfect for a treehouse." Emma felt something catch in her throat as she understood what Jack was showing her, not just plans for a treehouse, but for a life after the trial. A home for him and Ethan, close enough that she pushed the thought away, not ready to examine it too closely. "It's perfect," she said instead. "Both the house and the treehouse," Ethan beamed. "And Ms. Morgan can visit whenever she wants." "Dad said so." Jack's ears reddened slightly. "If she wants to, buddy. She might be pretty busy running her company." Emma smiled, meeting Jack's eyes over Ethan's head. "I'm never too busy for treehouse visits." The moment stretched between them, warm and full of unspoken possibility. Then Jack cleared his throat, returning to the practical present. "We should talk to Ethan about the new situation. About Ryan." Emma nodded, taking a seat at the table as Jack gently explained to Ethan that one of the bad guys was now out of jail, but that he couldn't come near them because of special rules. "Like a force field?" Ethan asked, processing the information in a way that made sense to his 8-year-old mind. "Kind of," Jack agreed, "but we still need to be extra careful. That means staying close to me or Ms. Morgan, no wandering off at school, and telling us right away if you see anyone watching you or trying to talk to you." Ethan nodded solemnly, his expression serious beyond his years. "I understand, Dad. Is he trying to hurt us because we told the truth?" Jack exchanged a glance with Emma, both surprised and moved by Ethan's perceptiveness. "Yes, buddy," Jack said finally. "Some people don't like it when the truth comes out. But that doesn't mean we should have stayed quiet." Emma leaned forward, meeting Ethan's eyes. "Your dad's right. Being brave means doing the right thing even when it's scary. And you, Ethan Harmon, are one of the bravest people I know." Ethan straightened with pride at her words. "Then I'll keep being brave. For all of us." As they finished breakfast and prepared for the day, Jack to his maintenance duties, Ethan to school with Emma's security team, Emma to another day of pre-trial hearings, a new resolve had settled over all three. Ryan Sullivan might be free, might be plotting, but they would not cower. They would continue building their unlikely family, one day one meal, one tree house plan at a time. Little did they know that across town, Ryan Sullivan sat in a private meeting room with a man whose name appeared on no corporate registry, whose services were paid for in cash, and whose specialty was creating leverage where none seemed to exist. The man studied photographs of Jack, Ethan, and Emma, committing their faces to memory as Ryan outlined exactly what he wanted done. The game had changed, the stakes had risen, and time was running out. The morning of the final pre-trial hearing dawned crisp and clear, autumn finally asserting itself over the lingering summer heat. Emma stood at her bedroom window, watching the city come alive beneath her. Delivery trucks making early rounds, lights flickering on in office buildings, the steady stream of commuters beginning their daily migration. 3 weeks had passed since Ryan made bail. 3 weeks of heightened security, of looking over shoulders, of teaching Ethan to be vigilant without terrifying him. Yet life had found its rhythm. Jack and Ethan had settled into Emma's penthouse with surprising ease, their presence transforming the once sterile space into something warm and lived in. Ethan's astronomy books scattered across coffee tables, Jack's coffee mug perpetually half full on the kitchen counter. family dinners that stretched into board games or stargazing on the terrace. Emma's phone buzzed with a text from Mark Donovan. Meeting you at courthouse. New development. We'll brief in person. Her stomach tightened. After weeks of relative calm, any new development felt ominous. She typed a quick acknowledgement, then moved through her morning routine with practiced efficiency. Shower, makeup, the armor of an impeccably tailored suit. Today's hearing would determine the final parameters for the trial set to begin next week. The prosecution was confident, the evidence damning. Yet Emma couldn't shake the feeling that Ryan had something planned, some final move to undermine their case. In the kitchen, she found Jack already dressed in his maintenance uniform, preparing breakfast while Ethan packed his school bag at the dining table. "You're up early," Jack observed, sliding a cup of coffee across the counter to her. Emma accepted it gratefully. "Final pre-trial hearing today. Mark says there's a new development." Jack's expression sobered. Good news or bad? He didn't say. Emma sipped her coffee, watching Ethan over the rim of her cup. The boy had grown more confident in recent weeks, his nightmares subsiding, his natural curiosity reasserting itself. She felt a fierce protectiveness toward him that sometimes took her breath away. This child who had changed the course of her life with a whispered warning. "You'll be careful today?" Jack asked quietly, pitching his voice so Ethan wouldn't hear. Emma nodded. "Always am. You too?" Their eyes met in understanding. Despite the restraining order, despite the ankle monitor tracking Ryan's movements, neither fully trusted the system to keep them safe. They had developed their own protocols, check-ins throughout the day, security escorts for Ethan, varying routes to and from the building. "Dad," Ethan called from the table, "can Ms. Emma come to my science fair next week? I want to show her my constellation projector." Jack glanced at Emma, a question in his eyes. She smiled. "I wouldn't miss it for the world, Ethan. What day is it?" As Ethan excitedly explained the details of his project, Emma felt that now familiar warmth spread through her chest. In the midst of legal battles and lurking threats, this moment of ordinary family life had become precious beyond measure. After breakfast, they parted ways, Ethan to school with his security escort, Jack to his maintenance duties, Emma to the courthouse where Mark Donovan waited with news that would shatter their careful equilibrium. The federal courthouse buzzed with activity. Reporters clustered near the entrance, hoping for a glimpse of the principals in what the press had dubbed the boardroom betrayal. Emma slipped in through a side entrance, guided by courthouse security to a small conference room where Mark paced with barely contained energy. "What's the development?" she asked without preamble. Mark gestured for her to sit, then slid a file across the table. "Two pieces of news, one good, one concerning. Good first. Diana Hayes has agreed to testify against Ryan. Full cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence." Emma's eyebrows rose. "That is good news. And the concerning part?" Mark's expression darkened. "Sullivan's made contact with a known fixer. Guy named Carver. Not quite a hitman, more of a problem solver. Specializes in witness intimidation." Emma's blood ran cold. "How do you know?" "I still have friends in law enforcement," Mark explained. "One of them spotted Sullivan meeting with Carver 2 days ago. No recording, no proof of what was discussed, but the timing speaks for itself," Emma finished. "Have you told Morales?" Mark nodded. "They're monitoring, but without evidence of an actual crime, their hands are tied. Sullivan's careful. Meeting took place in a public park. No phones, no electronics. Plausible deniability." Emma stared out the window, mind racing. "Jack and Ethan are vulnerable," she said finally. "Even with the security I've arranged." Mark leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I've been thinking about that. The trial starts Monday, 4 days from now. Sullivan knows his window of opportunity is closing. If he's going to make a move, it'll be soon. What are you suggesting?" "A trap," Mark said simply. "Give Sullivan, or rather his hired help, what appears to be an opportunity, but we control it, set the terms, ensure everyone's safety." Emma's eyes narrowed. "You want to use Jack and Ethan as bait?" Mark shook his head firmly. "Not them. You, me, and some of my former colleagues who'd love nothing more than to catch Carver in the act. Jack and Ethan stay completely clear, somewhere safe that Sullivan doesn't know about." Emma considered the proposal, weighing risks against rewards. It might work, but I'll need to discuss it with Jack, she said finally. This affects him and Ethan too much for me to decide unilaterally. Mark nodded, unsurprised. Fair enough. But don't take too long, and Emma, he caught her gaze. Be careful how you communicate. Sullivan's resources are considerable. Assume your calls, texts, emails are all compromised. With that sobering thought, Emma left for the hearing, her mind only partly focused on the legal proceedings as she considered how to protect the two people who had become, against all odds, the center of her world. The courtroom was packed, media and spectators filling every available seat as prosecutors and defense attorneys made their final pretrial arguments. Ryan sat at the defense table, impeccably dressed as always, his silver tie gleaming under the fluorescent lights. When Emma entered to take her seat in the gallery, his eyes found her immediately. Cold, calculating, a predator assessing its prey. She met his gaze steadily, refusing to show fear. Something shifted in his expression, not quite a smile, but a certainty that chilled her. He knew something she didn't, was confident in a way that belied his precarious legal position. The hearing proceeded with procedural arguments, evidentiary rulings, scheduling matters. Emma listened with half an ear, her focus split between the proceedings and the man who had once been her trusted colleague, now her most dangerous enemy. When the court recessed for lunch, Emma slipped away from the reporters clamoring for a statement. In a quiet corner of the courthouse cafe, she composed a text to Jack, carefully worded to reveal nothing to potential prying eyes. Science project discussion tonight. Important new variables to consider. His reply came quickly. Looking forward to it. Ethan has ideas too. Emma smiled despite her tension. They had developed their own code over the weeks. Science project meant security matters. Variables signaled new developments. Jack's response told her he understood the seriousness of her message. The afternoon session dragged on, but finally the judge gavelled the proceedings closed, setting the trial to begin Monday morning. As Emma gathered her things, she felt rather than saw Ryan approach, his security escort keeping a careful distance to comply with the restraining order. This won't end how you think, Emma, he said, voice pitched just loud enough for her to hear. Not everything can be captured on a recording. Not every betrayal leaves evidence. Emma straightened, meeting his gaze. You're right, Ryan. That's why your plan won't work. Whatever it is, a flash of something, surprise, concern, crossed his face before the mask of confidence returned. We'll see, he said simply, then turned and walked away, his security escort falling in step behind him. Emma watched him go, his words echoing in her mind. Not every betrayal leaves evidence. What did he mean? What was he planning? With renewed urgency, she left the courthouse, suddenly desperate to see Jack and Ethan, to ensure they were safe, to fortify the walls around the fragile happiness they had begun to build. Emma arrived home to find the penthouse filled with delicious aromas. Jack had made dinner, something involving roasted garlic and herbs that made her stomach growl despite her anxiety. Ethan sat at the dining table, homework spread before him, tongue caught between his teeth in concentration. You're back, he exclaimed when she entered, jumping up for a hug that still surprised her with its uninhibited affection. Emma returned the embrace, something tight in her chest loosening at the contact. How was school today? As Ethan launched into a detailed account of his day, Emma caught Jack's eye over the boy's head. Jack nodded slightly toward the terrace, their designated spot for private conversations. She nodded back, understanding. After dinner, as Ethan settled in with a book, Jack and Emma stepped out onto the terrace. The city spread below them like a carpet of stars mirroring the sky above. What's the new variable? Jack asked without preamble. Emma explained what Mark had told her. Diana's cooperation, Ryan's meeting with the fixer, the proposed trap. Jack listened silently, his expression growing grimmer with each detail. So this Carver person, he's what? Going to try to intimidate you into recanting? Or worse? Emma shrugged. Mark wasn't specific about Carver's methods, but yes, intimidation at minimum. Possibly, she hesitated. Possibly more. Jack's jaw tightened. And Mark wants to use you as bait. Not exactly, Emma clarified. He wants to create a controlled situation where Carver makes his move, but with protection in place. And he wants you and Ethan completely out of harm's way. Jack considered this, his gaze traveling over the city as he processed. Where would we go? Somewhere Ryan doesn't know about, Emma said. Somewhere safe. A humorless laugh escaped Jack. Is there anywhere truly safe from someone with Ryan's resources? Emma reached for his hand, a gesture that had become natural between them. There's my lake house, she suggested. It's in my grandmother's name, not connected to me in any public records. Private, secluded, excellent sight lines if you're security-minded. Jack's fingers intertwined with hers, warm and solid. And you'd stay here? As bait? Emma nodded, with Mark and his team watching every move. It's 4 days, Jack. 4 days until the trial starts. Then Ryan's focus will be on his defense, not on revenge. Jack was silent for a long moment, his thumb tracing absent patterns on the back of her hand. He'll make his move tomorrow, he said finally. Friday night or Saturday? Sunday at the latest. Why do you think that? Jack's smile held no humor. Because that's what I'd do, if I were him. Strike when least expected, when security might be more relaxed. Weekend plans, normal routines. He shook his head. I don't like it, Emma, any of it. I don't either, she admitted, but I like the alternative even less. If we do nothing, he controls the timing, the circumstances, everything. At least this way, we have some control, Jack finished. He sighed, his grip on her hand tightening slightly. All right, but I have conditions. Emma raised an eyebrow, a smile tugging at her lips despite the seriousness of the conversation. Conditions? Jack's expression remained grave. 1. Constant communication. Some secure method that can't be intercepted. 2. At the first sign of anything wrong, you abort, get somewhere safe. 3. His gaze intensified. This ends Monday, win or lose. No extending the operation no matter what. Emma nodded, accepting his terms. We should leave tonight, she said, you and Ethan, after he's asleep. Less chance of being followed. Jack agreed, though reluctance was evident in every line of his body. I'll pack our things. Tell Ethan it's a surprise weekend trip. As they returned inside, Ethan looked up from his book, his perceptive eyes taking in their serious expressions. Is everything okay? Jack ruffled his son's hair. Everything's fine, buddy. In fact, I have a surprise. How would you like to spend the weekend at Ms. Emma's secret lake house? Ethan's face lit up. A lake house? Can we go swimming? Is there a telescope? Can we go fishing? Emma laughed, the sound lighter than she felt. Yes to all of those things. It's beautiful there, especially this time of year. As Jack helped Ethan pack a bag, explaining it as an adventure rather than a security measure, Emma made her own preparations, calling Mark to confirm the plan, arranging for specialized security at the lake house, ensuring the caretaker had stocked the pantry and prepared the rooms. By midnight, Jack and Ethan were ready to leave, bags packed, the boy asleep on the couch waiting for his father to carry him to the car. Emma had arranged for her most trusted driver to take them, using a company vehicle rather than her distinctive personal car. Jack stood in the foyer, conflicted. I still don't like leaving you here. Emma stepped closer, placing a hand on his chest. I'll be fine. Mark's team is already in position. And this way, I know you and Ethan are safe. Jack covered her hand with his own. That goes both ways, you know. I need you to be safe too. The words hung between them, weighted with everything still unspoken. Then with a suddenness that startled them both, Jack pulled her into an embrace, his arms strong around her waist, his face buried in her hair. Come back to us, he whispered fiercely. Whatever happens, whatever Ryan tries, come back to us. Emma returned the embrace, her heart thundering against her ribs. I will, she promised. Always. When they separated, something had changed. A line crossed, a truth acknowledged. Jack cupped her face gently, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. Then he turned, gathered his sleeping son in his arms, and left without looking back, knowing that if he did, he might not be able to leave at all. Emma watched from the window as the car pulled away, carrying her heart with it into the darkness. Then she squared her shoulders, checked the secure phone Mark had provided, and prepared to face whatever Ryan Sullivan had planned. The lake house stood on a wooded peninsula, its weathered cedar siding blending with the surrounding forest. Jack carried Ethan, still half asleep, from the car, following the caretaker's flashlight along the winding path to the main house. Inside, a fire crackled in the stone hearth, casting dancing shadows across rustic but elegant furnishings. This was Emma's lake house? Jack had expected something sleek and modern, like her penthouse. Instead, he found himself in what felt like a family home. Comfortable couches, worn soft with use, bookshelves overflowing with paperbacks and board games, framed photographs of what must be Emma's family in younger, happier days. The caretaker, a taciturn, older man who introduced himself only as Garrett, showed them to their rooms. A master suite for Jack, a smaller room adjacent with twin beds where he gently laid Ethan. Security systems top of the line, Garrett explained in hushed tones as they returned to the main room. Motion sensors, cameras, the works. Ms. Morgan had it all upgraded last year. He handed Jack a tablet. Everything feeds to this. You'll see anyone coming long before they see you. Jack took the tablet, examining the multiple camera views of the property. And you? I'm just up the hill, Garrett said, gesturing vaguely northward. Close enough if you need anything, far enough for privacy. He hesitated, then added, Ms. Morgan said to tell you there's a gun safe in the master closet. Combination is her birthday. Jack's eyebrows rose. Emma owned guns? Reading his surprise, Garrett shrugged. Her grandfather taught her to shoot when she was 12. She's quite good. With that puzzling addition to Jack's understanding of Emma Morgan, Garrett left, the sound of his truck fading into the night. Jack secured the doors, checked all windows, then settled on the couch, tablet in hand, secure phone on the coffee table before him. Unable to sleep, he explored the house, moving silently to avoid waking Ethan. In the study, he found more photographs. Emma as a child with an older man who must be her grandfather. Emma in hiking gear on a mountain summit. Emma with a much older woman who shared her determined chin and direct gaze. So many facets to her he was only beginning to discover. The CEO, yes, but also the granddaughter, the hiker, the woman who apparently knew her way around firearms. The woman who had opened her home and heart to a maintenance man and his son. The secure phone buzzed with a text. All quiet here? You both settled in? Jack smiled, picturing Emma in her penthouse, worried about them when she was the one in potential danger. He typed back, safe and sound, E still sleeping, house is beautiful. You never told me you were Annie Oakley. Her reply came quickly. Grandfather insisted, said every woman should know how to defend herself. Never thought I'd need those skills in the corporate world. Jack's smile faded as he considered the reality of their situation. Emma alone in the penthouse, waiting for a man hired to silence her to make his move. Be careful, he fighted. I mean it, Emma. Always am, came the response. Get some sleep, Jack. But sleep remained elusive. Jack returned to the couch, tablet propped on his knees, watching the silent woods surrounding the lake house. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called, the sound eerily human in the stillness. He checked on Ethan, found him sleeping peacefully, star-shaped nightlight casting a gentle glow across his face. Finally, as dawn began to lighten the eastern sky, Jack dozed, the tablet slipping from his grasp onto the cushions beside him. His last conscious thought was of Emma, alone in her penthouse, facing a danger meant for all of them. Emma woke to sunlight streaming through her bedroom windows. For a moment, disoriented by the silence, she reached instinctively for the sound of Ethan's morning cartoons, Jack's quiet movements in the kitchen. Then reality crashed back. They were gone, safe at the lake house, while she remained to spring the trap Mark had set. Her secure phone showed no new messages beyond Jack's late-night texts. The penthouse security system reported no disturbances. Yet something felt off, a prickling awareness at the base of her skull that had served her well in boardroom battles. She showered and dressed casually, jeans, a sweater, comfortable shoes in case she needed to move quickly. According to the plan she and Mark had devised, today she would go about her normal Saturday routine, coffee at her usual cafe, perhaps some shopping, lunch with a friend, all under the watchful eyes of Mark's team, of course, positioned strategically throughout her usual haunts. The goal was to appear vulnerable while actually being protected, to draw out Carver, to catch him in whatever act Ryan had paid him to commit, to end the threat before the trial began on Monday. A dangerous game, but one with potentially decisive results. As Emma gathered her purse and keys, her personal phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Enjoying your solitude, Emma? Such a shame your house guests had to leave. The boy seems so happy in your home. Her blood froze. Ryan, or more likely Carver, knew Jack and Ethan had left. Had they been watching? Following? Were Jack and Ethan truly safe? Or had she sent them into danger rather than away from it? With trembling fingers, she called Mark. "Change of plans," she said when he answered. "They know about Jack and Ethan leaving. We need to make sure they're safe." Mark's voice was calm, steadying. "I'll send someone to the lake house. But Emma, this could be a ploy to get you to reveal their location." Emma paced her living room, mind racing. "I'm not taking that chance, Mark. Not with them." "All right," Mark agreed, "but stick to the plan otherwise. If they're trying to rattle you, it means they're ready to make their move. Stay in public spaces. Keep your security detail close." After ending the call, Emma texted Jack on the secure phone. "Possible security breach. Stay alert. Mark sending additional protection." His reply was immediate. "What happened?" Emma hesitated, not wanting to worry him unnecessarily, but knowing he deserved the truth. "Text from unknown number. They know you left. Could be bluffing, could be surveillance. Stay inside, stay vigilant." "Will do," Jack responded. "Be careful, Emma. Please." The please undid her, that simple word carrying the weight of everything still unspoken between them. Emma closed her eyes briefly, centering herself, then gathered her resolve and stepped into the elevator, descending to where her security detail waited to begin the dangerous charade of normalcy. At the lake house, Jack moved with controlled urgency, checking windows, securing doors, positioning himself where he could monitor both the security tablet and Ethan, who was happily exploring the house, oblivious to his father's tension. "Dad, can we go down to the lake today?" Ethan called from the sunroom, face pressed to the glass that overlooked the water. Jack forced a smile. "Maybe later, buddy. Let's get settled in first." He didn't share Emma's text with his son, didn't want to frighten him, but the knowledge that someone, Ryan, Carver, whoever, had been watching them, had known they left the penthouse, sent ice through his veins. Had they been followed? Was the lake house compromised? The tablet showed nothing unusual. Empty woods, calm lake shore, the narrow access road visible for a quarter mile before it disappeared into the trees. Yet Jack couldn't shake the feeling of exposure, of vulnerability. His phone buzzed, not the secure line from Emma, but his regular cell. Unknown number. Jack hesitated, then answered without speaking. "Mr. Harmon." The voice was male, cultured, with an undertone of amusement. "Such a lovely spot Ms. Morgan has chosen for your retreat." Jack's grip tightened on the phone. "Who is this?" "A friend of Ryan Sullivan's," the voice replied. Though friend might be an overstatement, business associate would be more accurate. "Carver." Jack moved to the window, scanning the woods, the lake, seeing nothing out of place. "What do you want?" "A simple exchange, Mr. Harmon. Ms. Morgan recants her testimony, admits to falsifying evidence, and you and your remarkably perceptive son get to enjoy many more years of stargazing together." A pause, then, "I can see him now, by the way. Blue shirt, looking at the canoe on the shore, wondering if his father will take him out on the lake." Jack's heart stuttered. He turned to see Ethan, exactly as described, standing at the sunroom window, completely exposed to anyone watching from the woods with binoculars or a scope. "Ethan," he called, voice sharper than intended. "Come here, please." The boy turned, startled by his father's tone, but obeyed immediately. Jack pulled him away from the window, heart hammering in his chest. "I'd say you have about 6 hours to convince Ms. Morgan to reconsider her position," Carver continued smoothly. "After that, well," he left the threat unspoken. "I'll be in touch, Mr. Harmon." The line went dead. Jack stood frozen, Ethan looking up at him with confusion and the beginning of fear. "Dad, what's wrong?" Jack forced his breathing to steady, his expression to calm. "Nothing, buddy. Just thought I saw something outside. Why don't you check out the games in the living room cabinet? I bet Ms. Emma has some cool ones." Once Ethan was safely occupied in the interior of the house, Jack called Emma's secure line. It went straight to voicemail. Part of the plan, she would be in public now, playing her role in their dangerous game. Next, he called Mark, explaining the situation in terse sentences. "He can see us, Mark." He described Ethan, what he was wearing, what he was looking at. They found the lake house. Mark's response was immediate. "I'm sending a team now. ETA 30 minutes. Get to the safe room. Emma mentioned there's one behind the bookcase in the study. Jack hadn't known about the safe room, but he found it easily enough. A panel that slid open when the correct sequence of books was pulled forward, revealing a small but well-equipped space with reinforced walls, independent ventilation, a monitoring system that mirrored the tablet, and, most importantly, no windows. He gathered Ethan, explaining it as part of the weekend's adventure, a secret room like in the mystery books they read together. Ethan, always game for anything that seemed like a story come to life, entered eagerly, exploring the supplies, the fold-down beds, the small bathroom tucked in one corner. "It's like a spaceship, Dad," he exclaimed, bouncing on one of the beds. "Are we going to sleep in here?" Jack managed a smile. "Maybe, bud, for tonight at least. It'll be fun, right?" As Ethan settled in with a book from the well-stocked shelves, Jack checked the monitoring system. Still nothing unusual on the cameras, but he no longer trusted the technology. Carver had seen them, which meant he was close enough to have visual contact, yet hadn't triggered any of the supposedly state-of-the-art security systems. He tried Emma's secure line again. Still voicemail. Tried his own phone to call Garrett, the caretaker. No signal. Had Carver somehow jammed their communications? 30 minutes stretched to 45, then an hour. No sign of Mark's team. No word from Emma. Jack paced the confined space, checking and rechecking the monitoring system. The gun he'd retrieved from Emma's safe tucked into the waistband of his jeans, hidden from Ethan's view by his untucked shirt. Outside, the day aged toward afternoon, shadows lengthening across the lawn, visible in one camera view. 6 hours, Carver had said, time ticking away while Jack sat helpless, unable to reach Emma, unable to warn her that their plan had backfired spectacularly. In the city, Emma sat at an outdoor cafe, sipping coffee she couldn't taste, aware of Mark's team positioned strategically around her. The couple at the next table, the man reading a newspaper across the street, the barista who was actually an ex-cop with impressive hand-to-hand combat skills. Her secure phone remained in her purse, switched off as planned to maintain the illusion of normalcy. Her regular phone sat on the table beside her coffee cup, a prop in their elaborate charade. So far, nothing unusual had occurred. No suspicious figures, no threatening encounters, no sign of Carver making his move. She checked her watch. Nearly 3 hours since she'd left the penthouse. Jack would be worried by her silence, but it was necessary. If Carver was watching, any deviation from normal behavior might alert him. A text chimed on her regular phone, another unknown number. "Time's running out, Emma. Jack understands the stakes. Do you?" Her hand froze halfway to the device. Mark, seated at the next table, noticed her reaction and shifted slightly. Alert. Emma forced herself to breathe, to pick up the phone casually, to read the message as if it were nothing important. They were contacting Jack, too, threatening him, presumably, using Ethan as leverage. She signaled to Mark, a prearranged gesture that indicated a development. He rose, paid his bill, and departed, only to call her regular phone moments later from a secure line. "What happened?" he asked without preamble. Emma explained the text, its implications. "I need to contact Jack," she insisted, "now." Mark hesitated. If Carver is watching, breaking protocol could tip him off. "I don't care," Emma said firmly. "I need to know they're safe." After a brief argument, Mark agreed. Emma switched on her secure phone, found 7 missed calls from Jack, and immediately called back, heart in her throat. Jack answered on the first ring, his voice tight with controlled fear. "Emma, thank God. Are you all right?" "I'm fine," she assured him. "I just got a text from Carver." "He's contacting you too," Jack quickly explained. The threat, Carver's visual on Ethan, the apparent failure of the lake house security, the lack of arrival of Mark's promised team. "We're in the safe room now," he finished. "But Emma, if he can see us, if he's cut off our communications—" "I'm coming to you," Emma said, decision made instantly. "Mark will have to adjust the plan." "No!" Jack's response was vehement. "That's exactly what he wants. To get you isolated, away from protection. Stay where you are. Stay visible." Emma was already rising from her seat, gesturing to her security detail. "I'm not leaving you and Ethan alone out there, Jack. Not with Carver watching. Mark will send more people. We'll come in force. Emma." Jack's voice changed, became softer, more intimate. Listen to me. This is what Ryan wants. To separate you from protection. To get you away from witnesses. The best thing you can do for us right now is stay exactly where you are. Stay safe. Let Mark handle this. Emma hesitated, torn between the desperate need to reach Jack and Ethan and the logical understanding that he was right. Leaving the city, the protection of Mark's team, the public spaces where Carver couldn't easily act, would be playing directly into Ryan's hands. I can't just do nothing, she said finally, voice breaking slightly. You're not, Jack assured her. You're being smart. You're denying Ryan what he wants. And Emma, his voice dropped lower. We need you to come back to us, wholly and safe, for that treehouse I promised Ethan. The reference to their shared future, tentative as it was, steadied her. All right, she agreed, but Mark needs to send more people to you right now. Already happening, Jack confirmed. He finally reached me about 20 minutes ago. Team ETA 15 minutes. We'll be okay, Emma. Just be careful. After ending the call, Emma rejoined her security detail, explaining the situation to Mark in terse sentences. His face darkened as he realized the extent of their miscalculation. We assumed Carver would target you directly, he said, running a hand through his hair in frustration. Instead, he's using Jack and Ethan as leverage. Which means Ryan's endgame isn't just to stop my testimony, Emma realized. He wants me to discredit myself, to admit to falsifying evidence. He wants to destroy me completely, not just neutralize me as a witness. Mark nodded grimly. And he's counting on your feelings for Jack and Ethan to make you comply. He's right about my feelings, Emma said quietly, but wrong about how I'll respond to threats. Her phone buzzed again. Jack, on the secure line. Team arrived, setting up perimeter, safe for now. Relief flooded her, followed immediately by renewed determination. Ryan had miscalculated. He'd assumed she would crumble under the threat to those she cared about. Instead, he had only strengthened her resolve to see this through, to ensure he faced justice for all his crimes, past and present. The lake house sat silent in the gathering dusk, no outward sign of the armed security now positioned strategically throughout the property. Inside the safe room, Jack and Ethan had settled into an uneasy routine. Board games to pass the time, snacks from the well-stocked pantry, periodic checks of the monitoring system that now showed Mark's team in position, a reassuring presence in the encroaching darkness. Ethan had accepted Jack's explanation that they needed to stay in the secret room as part of a security drill, his natural curiosity satisfied by the novel environment, and his father's promise that they would return to normal activities soon. Now he slept on one of the fold-down beds, exhausted from the tension he had absorbed without fully understanding its source. Jack sat at the monitoring station, watching the infrared cameras sweep the darkened grounds, the secure phone beside him should Emma call again. Their last communication had been brief, confirmation that she remained safe in the city, surrounded by Mark's people, following the revised plan to stay in public spaces until Carver made his move or time ran out. 6 hours, Carver had said. That deadline had passed over an hour ago with no further contact. Jack wasn't naive enough to believe the threat had passed. More likely, Carver was regrouping, adjusting his strategy now that the lake house was secured, seeking another angle of attack. The secure phone buzzed, a text from Emma. Still safe, heading back to penthouse with team. We'll call when secured. Jack frowned. The penthouse wasn't part of the plan. They had agreed she would stay in public until morning, when the full force of federal protection could be implemented ahead of Monday's trial. Why change now? He called immediately. No answer. Called again. Straight to voicemail. Something was wrong. Emma wouldn't deviate from the plan without telling him why, wouldn't switch off her phone after sending such a cryptic message. Jack's hand hovered over the emergency button that would alert Mark's team stationed around the lake house. But what could they do from here, miles from the city? And what if he was overreacting, pulling security away from Ethan based on a misinterpretation? As if in answer to his unspoken question, the regular phone in his pocket buzzed. Unknown number. Jack answered immediately. She's quite beautiful when she sleeps, Mr. Harmon. Carver's voice, smooth as silk, though I imagine you already know that. Jack's blood turned to ice. Where is she? Quite safe for the moment. Carver sounded almost bored, a slight miscalculation on her security team's part. Amazing how many people still accept drinks from strangers in bars, isn't it? What do you want? Jack demanded, fighting to keep his voice low to not wake Ethan. The same thing I wanted 6 hours ago, Mr. Harmon. Ms. Morgan recants her testimony, admits to falsifying evidence. Only now, instead of threatening your son, I'm offering a straight trade. Her freedom for her testimony. Let me speak to her. I'm afraid she's not available for conversation at the moment, Carver replied. The sedative will wear off in an hour or so. By then, I'll need your answer. Jack's mind raced. Emma had been taken, drugged. But where? And how had Carver managed it with Mark's team watching? I'll need proof she's alive and unharmed, Jack insisted. A photo, a video call, something. Carver chuckled. Smart man. Check your text messages in 5 minutes. And Mr. Harmon, don't bother trying to trace this call or the photo. My employer pays handsomely for discretion and technical expertise. The line went dead. Jack immediately hit the emergency button, summoning the head of the security team to the safe room. As he waited, he called Mark, explaining the situation in terse sentences. Mark's reaction confirmed Jack's worst fears. She's gone, he admitted, voice tight with anger and self-recrimination. Slipped away from the security detail about 40 minutes ago. We've been searching, but Jack closed his eyes, fighting for control. She received a text, he said, something that made her leave protection. Check her regular phone records, see who contacted her. As Mark mobilized his resources in the city, the head of the Lake House security team arrived at the safe room, a former military man named Reynolds who listened to Jack's explanation with professional calm. We can spare 2 men to accompany you back to the city, he offered. The rest will remain here to protect your son. Jack glanced at Ethan, still sleeping peacefully, unaware of the danger surrounding them all. The thought of leaving him tore at Jack's heart, but the alternative, abandoning Emma to Carver's mercy, was unthinkable. His phone buzzed with an incoming text, the promised proof of life, a photo of Emma, unconscious on what appeared to be a hotel bed, a current newspaper visible beside her to prove the image was recent. Jack showed it to Reynolds, who studied it with a professional eye. Hotel room, mid-range based on the furnishings, generic enough that it could be anywhere in the city. Another text followed. 4 hours, Mr. Harmon. Then I start sending her back to you in pieces. Jack's decision solidified. I need to go, he told Reynolds. Now. The security man nodded, already making arrangements via his radio. What about the boy? Jack knelt beside Ethan's bed, brushing hair from his son's forehead with gentle fingers. I need someone I trust completely to stay with him, he said quietly. Someone who would die to protect him. Reynolds met his gaze steadily. I have a daughter his age, he said simply. I understand. Something passed between the 2 men, a recognition, an understanding of what was at stake. Jack nodded once, then began gathering what he would need for the journey back to the city, for the confrontation that awaited. As he prepared to leave, Jack paused beside Ethan's bed one last time. I'll be back soon, buddy, he whispered, though his son couldn't hear. With Emma, I promise. Then he was gone, racing through the night toward the woman who had, against all odds, become the center of his world, determined to reach her before Carver's deadline expired, before Ryan Sullivan could claim another victim in his ruthless quest for revenge. The drive back to the city was a blur of headlights and rain-slick roads. Jack sat in the passenger seat of the security vehicle, his mind racing through scenarios, contingencies, backup plans. The 2 men from Reynolds' team, Carter and Reyes, maintained a professional silence, respecting his concentration. The photo of Emma, unconscious and vulnerable, burned in his memory, fueling a cold determination he hadn't felt since the darkest days after Sarah's diagnosis. ETA 15 minutes, Carter said, breaking the silence. Mark's team is converging on downtown. They've narrowed the search to 3 possible hotels based on the room details in the photo. Jack nodded, checking his secure phone again. No further messages from Carver, no updates from Mark. The waiting was its own kind of torture. I should never have left her, he said, more to himself than his companions. Reyes, behind the wheel, glanced at him in the rearview mirror. She made the call that kept your son safe. You're making the call that'll keep her safe. Sometimes that's all we can do. Simple words, but they steadied Jack. The guilt wouldn't disappear, but neither would his resolve. As the city skyline grew on the horizon, Jack touched the gun tucked at his waist, one of Emma's from the lake house safe, a last resort he prayed he wouldn't need. His phone buzzed with a text from Mark. Location confirmed. Grand Meridian Hotel, room 712. Team assembling. Wait for us. Jack's pulse quickened. The Grand Meridian, he told Carter. Room 712. Carter relayed the information to Mark via radio while Reyes adjusted their route. Jack stared out at the glittering hotel as they approached. 40 stories of luxury and discretion, the kind of place where money ensured privacy and few questions. Mark says wait for tactical, Carter warned, reading Jack's expression. But Jack was already calculating. The longer they waited, the more time Carver had to move Emma, to harm her. The deadline of 4 hours echoed in his mind, a countdown to a threat he refused to let materialize. I'm going in, he said simply. If Mark arrives, good. If not, I'll handle it. Carter and Reyes exchanged glances, both military veterans who recognized the look of a man who wouldn't be dissuaded. Then we're coming too, Carter said. But we do this smart. No heroics. They parked 2 blocks away, approaching the hotel on foot through a light drizzle that had begun to fall. The Grand Meridian's lobby gleamed with marble and soft lighting, doormen in crisp uniforms greeting late-night arrivals. Jack adjusted his jacket, concealing both his weapon and the tension radiating from him in waves. Service entrance, Reyes suggested. Less visibility. They circled the building, finding the staff doors monitored by a single security camera. Carter disabled it with a small device from his pocket, a remnant of his Special Forces days that Jack chose not to question. They slipped inside, moving through the back corridors like shadows. The service elevator required a key card, but Reyes produced one from his wallet. Universal Hotel override, he explained at Jack's questioning look. Another remnant you don't need to know about. As they ascended to the 7th floor, Jack's phone buzzed. A message from Carver. Time's ticking, Mr. Harmon. 2 hours remaining. Perhaps Ms. Morgan will wake soon and we can discuss her options directly. Jack's jaw tightened. They needed to move fast. The 7th floor corridor stretched before them, empty and silent. Room 712 was midway down, nothing distinguishing it from the others. Carter and Reyes positioned themselves on either side of the door, weapons drawn but held low. Jack stood between them, heart hammering against his ribs. On 3, Carter whispered. I breach, Reyes covers. You find her. Jack nodded, focusing on his single task. Get to Emma. The rest would follow. 1, 2, 3. Carter's boot met the door just beside the electronic lock. The wood splintered, the door swinging inward with a crash. Reyes moved in first, weapons sweeping the room. Jack followed, eyes searching frantically. The suite was empty. The bed where Emma had been photographed was neatly made. No sign of disturbance. No luggage, no personal items, nothing to indicate the room had been occupied recently. Clear, Reyes called from the bathroom. Clear, echoed Carter from the closet. Jack stood frozen in the center of the room, a terrible emptiness spreading through his chest. She was here, he insisted, pulling out his phone to show the photo again. The bedspread, the lamp, the window view. It matches. Carter examined the photo. You're right, but they've moved her. Jack's phone buzzed again. Another message from Carver. Did you really think it would be that easy, Mr. Harmon? Consider this your first warning. Next time, we won't leave the room empty. Attached was a new photo, Emma, still unconscious but now in a different location. An industrial space with concrete walls and metal rafters. No windows, no identifying features. Jack's blood ran cold. He knew we were coming. Hotel security cameras, Reyes said grimly. He's been watching. The realization hit Jack like a physical blow. They'd been played. Carver had never intended for them to find Emma at the hotel. It was a diversion, a way to draw them away from the lake house, to show his power. We need to regroup, Carter said, already moving toward the door. Contact Mark, pool resources. But Jack remained still, studying the new photo with desperate intensity. Something about the industrial space nagged at his memory. The specific pattern of exposed pipes in the ceiling, the particular shade of concrete on the walls. I know where she is, he said suddenly. Carter and Reyes turned to him, skeptical. The old Morgan Innovations factory, Jack continued, certainty growing. The one they closed last year when they moved production overseas. I did the decommission inspection. Those are the basement maintenance tunnels. You're sure? Reyes asked. Jack nodded. I spent weeks mapping those tunnels, and Ryan would know about them. He oversaw the shutdown. Why there? Carter wondered. Because it's the last place Emma would ever go voluntarily, Jack said, already moving toward the door. She fought the shutdown, wanted to keep the jobs local. Lost that battle to Ryan and the board. He's taunting her as much as he's threatening us. As they raced back to the car, Jack called Mark, explaining his theory. Mark confirmed he'd redirect his team to the abandoned factory on the outskirts of the industrial district. But they were scattered across downtown. Regrouping would take time. Time Emma might not have. We'll go ahead, Jack told him. Scout the situation, but we won't engage without backup. Even as he said the words, Jack knew they were a half-truth at best. If Emma was in immediate danger, he wouldn't wait. Couldn't wait. The drive to the abandoned factory took 20 minutes that felt like hours. The building loomed against the night sky, a hulking shadow of brick and steel, windows dark, parking lot empty, except for a single black SUV parked near a side entrance. That's our confirmation, Carter said, gesturing to the vehicle. Now we wait for Mark's team. Jack studied the building, memories of the layout surfacing from his time there. The maintenance tunnels have 3 access points: the loading dock, the northeast stairwell, and the boiler room. If they're holding her in the tunnels, those are our entry options. And if they're expecting us? Reyes asked. They're expecting us, Jack confirmed, but they're expecting a frontal assault, not someone who knows the building's secrets. He outlined his plan, simple, direct, but relying on his intimate knowledge of the factory's infrastructure. Carter and Reyes listened, adding tactical suggestions, refining the approach. By the time they finished, Mark had texted to say his team was 10 minutes out. We stick to the plan, Jack insisted. Your team secures the perimeter, creates a diversion at the main entrance. We go in through the boiler room access shaft. It's too narrow for most people to consider, but I've used it for maintenance. It leads directly to the tunnel section in that photo. Carter and Reyes exchanged glances again, a silent communication between men accustomed to dangerous situations. It's your show, Carter said finally. We follow your lead. When Mark's team arrived, 4 men and 2 women with the efficient movements of law enforcement, they incorporated Jack's plan into their approach. Mark himself looked haggard, the failure to protect Emma etched in the lines of his face. I'm sorry, he told Jack. I underestimated Carver, underestimated Sullivan's reach. We'll make it right, Jack said simply. Let's bring her home. The operation proceeded with military precision. Mark's team created a diversion at the main entrance. Floodlights, shouted commands, the illusion of a major police response. Meanwhile, Jack, Carter, and Reyes slipped around to the boiler room's exterior access hatch, a small metal door half hidden by overgrown weeds. Jack pulled it open, revealing a narrow shaft barely wide enough for a man's shoulders. I go first, he said, then Reyes, then Carter. The descent was claustrophobic, the shaft narrowing further before opening into a maintenance crawlspace. Jack moved by memory and touch more than sight, the darkness nearly absolute. Behind him, he could hear Reyes and Carter following, their breathing controlled, professional. After what felt like an eternity of crawling through dust and cobwebs, Jack reached the access panel that would open into the main tunnel. He paused, listening. Voices, muffled but present. One smooth and cultured, Carver. The other weaker, but achingly familiar. Emma. She was awake. She was alive. Jack signaled to the men behind him, then carefully, silently began to loosen the access panel. Through the growing gap, light spilled in, dim industrial emergency lighting that cast long shadows. He could now see into the tunnel. Emma sat on a metal chair, hands bound behind her, looking pale but alert. Her expression was defiant despite the circumstances. Carver paced before her, phone in hand, his back to the access panel where Jack watched. Your time is nearly up, Ms. Morgan, Carver was saying. Mr. Harmon has proven uncooperative. Perhaps you'll be more reasonable. Jack would never sacrifice the truth for me, Emma replied, her voice hoarse but steady. And I would never want him to. Carver laughed, a sound devoid of humor. Such nobility. Let's see if it survives what comes next. He set his phone down and reached inside his jacket, producing a small case. From it, he withdrew a syringe. A little something to make you more compliant for the video we're about to record. Your confession about falsifying evidence against poor, wronged Ryan Sullivan. Jack had seen enough. He glanced back at Reyes and Carter, signaling the situation. 3 fingers, countdown to action. They nodded, weapons ready. 3, 2, 1. Jack kicked the access panel open with explosive force, the metal clattering across the concrete floor. He emerged from the opening in one fluid motion, weapon drawn, focused entirely on Carver. "Drop it," he commanded. "Now!" Carver spun, startled but recovering quickly. The syringe remained in his hand, and in one swift movement, he was behind Emma, the needle pressed against her neck. "Mr. Harmon, right on schedule." His voice betrayed no fear, only mild irritation. "Unfortunately, you've misunderstood the situation. I'm not the one who should be surrendering." Behind Jack, Reyes and Carter emerged from the access panel, their weapons trained on Carver. But the standoff remained. Any sudden move could send the syringe into Emma's neck. "Jack," Emma said softly, her eyes finding his. "It's okay." "It's not okay," Jack replied, never taking his gaze from Carver. "But it will be." Carver smiled, touching, but ultimately futile. "Here's what happens next. You all lower your weapons. I complete my assignment. Ms. Morgan records her confession. Everyone lives. Alternative scenarios are less pleasant." "Here's a scenario for you," came a new voice from the tunnel entrance. Mark stood there, flanked by his team. "You're surrounded by former federal agents with nothing to lose and a serious grudge against hired thugs who target women and children. How do you like those odds?" Carver's expression didn't change, but a new calculation entered his eyes. "Mr. Sullivan pays very well for completed assignments." "Mr. Sullivan is about to have much bigger problems," Mark replied. "We found his encrypted communications on Ms. Morgan's personal phone. Turns out he wasn't as careful as he thought. The FBI is picking him up as we speak. Violation of bail conditions, witness tampering, conspiracy to kidnap. The list keeps growing." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Carver's face. Jack could see the man reassessing, weighing options, seeking an exit strategy. "There's no way out," Jack said quietly. "Not with her. Not tonight." A moment of perfect stillness hung in the air. Then several things happened at once. Emma, who had been working at her bindings throughout the conversation, suddenly twisted sideways, throwing her weight against Carver's arm. The syringe clattered to the floor. Jack lunged forward, tackling Carver away from Emma. They crashed to the ground in a tangle of limbs, Jack's gun skidding away across the concrete. Carver was professionally trained. That much became immediately clear as he landed a vicious blow to Jack's ribs. Pain exploded through Jack's side, but he held on, grappling with the man who had threatened everything he cared about. They rolled across the floor, trading blows. Carver was younger, faster, but Jack fought with the desperate strength of a man protecting his family. In his mind, he saw Ethan's face, Emma's smile, the future they might build together if they survived this night. Carver managed to get a hand free, reaching for something in his ankle holster, a small backup weapon. Jack saw the movement, recognized the threat, and acted on pure instinct. He drove his elbow into Carver's throat with all the force he could muster. Carver's eyes widened. He gasped, choking, the weapon forgotten as his hands flew to his crushed windpipe. Security personnel swarmed forward, separating them, restraining Carver, who was now struggling for breath. Medical attention would come, but not before justice. Jack scrambled to Emma's side, where Mark was already cutting her bindings. She fell forward into Jack's arms, trembling but whole. "You came," she whispered against his chest. "Always," he promised, holding her as if she might disappear. "I will always come for you." The aftermath unfolded in a blur of statements, medical examinations, and legal procedures. Ryan Sullivan, arrested at his home for violating bail conditions, now faced additional charges that would keep him imprisoned for decades. Diana Hayes, true to her word, provided testimony that sealed his fate. Carver, recovered from his injury, refused to speak. Professional ethics, perhaps, or simply self-preservation. but the evidence against him was overwhelming. Through it all, Jack remained at Emma's side, leaving only once to call the lake house, to hear Ethan's voice, to assure himself that his son was safe. "Is Miss Emma okay?" Ethan had asked, concern evident even through his sleepiness. "She's okay," Jack confirmed. "We both are, and we'll be home soon." Home, the word carried new meaning now, not just the lake house, not just his apartment, but wherever the three of them could be together. The trial, when it finally began the following week, was anticlimactic. The evidence was irrefutable, the testimonies damning. Ryan Sullivan and his co-conspirators faced justice for their financial crimes, their attempt to steal Emma's company, and their subsequent efforts to silence witnesses. Emma rebuilt Morgan Innovations with a new leadership team, instituting changes that prioritize transparency and ethical business practices. The factory that had been the site of her kidnapping was reopened, jobs restored to the community, a reclamation of what had been nearly lost. And on a quiet evening 6 months later, Jack stood in the backyard of a modest house with a mature oak tree, watching as Emma and Ethan hung lanterns in the newly completed treehouse, just as he had designed it, with multiple levels and a small observatory dome where Ethan's telescope now sat. "Dad," Ethan called down, "come see, you can see all the way to the park from here." Jack climbed the rope ladder, joining them in the wooden structure that had become symbol of their new beginning. Ethan immediately dragged him to the observation platform, pointing out landmarks with the enthusiasm only an 8-year-old could muster. Emma stood in the doorway of the small enclosed room, watching them with a smile that still made Jack's heart skip. When Ethan dashed off to retrieve his star chart from the main house, she moved to Jack's side, slipping her hand into his. "Happy?" she asked simply. Jack looked around, at the treehouse he'd built with his own hands, at the home they now shared, at the woman who had transformed from CEO to family in the space of a few extraordinary months. "More than I thought possible," he admitted. "After Sarah, I didn't think I'd ever feel this way again." Emma rested her head against his shoulder. "I think she'd be glad that you and Ethan found happiness again." "I think so too," Jack said softly. "And I think she'd like you." "Because I'm stubborn?" Emma teased, referencing a conversation from what felt like a lifetime ago. "Because you see what matters," Jack corrected, "beyond titles, beyond appearances. You see people for who they really are." "I saw you," she agreed, though I needed Ethan's help at first. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching as the sun began to set over their neighborhood. So different from the glittering penthouse view, yet infinitely more precious. Ethan raced back up the ladder, star chart in hand, ready for their nightly ritual of identifying constellations. As they huddled together, pointing out Cassiopeia and Pegasus in the darkening sky, Jack felt the final pieces of his heart knit together. This was what healing looked like, not the absence of scars, but the presence of new joy growing around them. This was what family meant, not perfect people, but people who chose each other, day after day, through darkness and light. And as night fell completely, stars emerging like old friends above their treehouse sanctuary, Jack knew with absolute certainty that they had found their way home at last. Not a beginning again, but a homecoming.